everybody. You are listening to the History Boys. It's me again, Christopher Whedon, with a bit of a hoarse voice from singing karaoke all weekend.
Yeah, you had a long weekend.
Yeah, it was. I'm exhausted.
All that singing.
Yeah.
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 Takes it out of you.
I really did. I was singing 9 Inch Nails.
Nice.
9 Inch Nails.
And I am Rose Dawson, and I'm a history. Just kidding. I'm Maddie Moon.
Yeah.
Although if you ask 9-year-old me, I'd probably say Rose Dawson.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you ask 9-year-old me, I'd say Han Solo.
Yeah, right.
I
don't know, Batman.
Oh, yeah, probably actually Batman.
John McClane, maybe.
Spooderman.
Yeah. Anyway, I am Jerry Nash, actually.
Well, that's good.
Your humble history boy as always. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series on the Titanic.
The Titanic.
Yes, yes. This one is a real doozy, gang. It's a real doozy.
Yeah, we got to the bad part.
Yep. A lot of really horrific things are about to happen in this episode, just as a quick warning.
It's the part of the movie that I liked when I saw it once as a young man.
Yeah, you only watched the second tape.
Yeah, fuck the first tape. I like when that guy hits the propeller on his phone.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
My legs!
Patang. Yeah.
Patang.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, real quick, in 1898, a fellow by the name of Morgan Robertson, published The Wreck of the Titan, or as it's more commonly referred to, Futility, about a large boat named the Titan that in the same month of April hits an iceberg and sinks in the North Atlantic, resulting in the loss of almost everyone on board.
Oh, so we are going to talk about conspiracy theories.
That's just a crazy coincidence. Honestly, a lot of people of the time were like, so how's this going to fail? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like science fiction too, like talking about like, you know, when we were going to the space and stuff, and talking about like how that could go wrong. You know,
but it was called basically the same thing.
Right.
Sank in the same month.
Right. In the same place. Yeah.
Was it also an iceberg that sank?
Yeah.
That's
what?
Wild.
No,
Yeah.
This is clear evidence of a time traveler. Like, that's insane.
He also like predicted a couple other things too.
I was a bit of a Nostradamus.
Ooh.
But a lot of people were talking about it of the time. You know what I mean?
He's like the Simpsons.
Yeah. Well, and now, you know, we have things about robot uprisings and, you know, sentient AI and, you know, nothing bad can happen from misinformation on the internet. There's no way it can cause a
yeah, but
coup.
to be that specific,
Yeah.
that just seems wild to me that
Right.
it's that specific.
Right. It's pretty crazy. Well, picking up right from when we left off, at around 9:30 a.m. on April 10th, 1912, passengers began arriving at the Southampton docks to board the Titanic for her maiden voyage. Stewards showed like the first class people to their cabins. You know, they were personally greeted by Captain E.J. Smith, you know, and third class passengers were, inspected for like lice and like ailments and stuff before they like got on board.
Which they, do in the movie. Or they do a little nod to kind of in the movie.
Yeah. It's something they like tried to avoid because it's unsightly.
The delousing.
Yeah, they had to do that because they could be refused entry into the United States. Now they got to take them all the way back. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, if somebody had lice on board?
Well, just certain maladies, you know, certain sicknesses.
Nowadays, they're like, COVID's like in full bloom, and they're like, yes, cruises, $100.
Booze cruise.
They don't give a fuck. Or they didn't back, in those days. In 2020.
In Florida.
Meanwhile, they're like, lice, turn this shit around and take this 7-day journey back to England. We don't want your asses here.
Go back from where you came.
Yeah, from whence you came.
Yeah, from whence.
Clearly.
And the Titanic blew its whistle, which I guess was the biggest whistle ever made.
Yeah, of course it was.
As well, you know. And they were off. Actually, as they pulled away, its displacement and like its wake was so crazy that the SS City of New York, which is of the American line, and the Oceanic, also of the White Star Line, were caught up in its wake. and like pulled out. Like these tugboats had to come out and like pull these boats back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the docks weren't like built to handle like boats this big. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, there was problems like right away.
Good signs for sure.
Yeah. So then they popped over to France, across the English Channel to Cherbourg, where they picked up more passengers. Some people were just going across the English Channel. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That would've
like,
been nice.
oh no, I rode the Titanic, but it was fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Just
I had a
across
great
the English
experience.
Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I'm a Titanic survivor.
Yeah,
and they're
right.
like, really? How was it? Well,
Great.
Yeah. It's like somebody like called in sick that day or something, you know, on 9/11.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, like we
Like Seth MacFarlane,
yeah, like we talked about last time. We just barely
And that
missed.
liar from the League.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I will speak of him no longer.
Yeah. There were 24 people that just rode it across the channel.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
They're probably running around the halls, causing all kinds of havoc.
Screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
Let's just drop them off in France.
Yeah.
At 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, April 11th, the Titanic arrived at Cork Harbour of Queenstown on the south coast of Ireland to pick up the rest of the passengers. Actually, another 7 passengers from Southampton got off there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. This got bad vibes.
You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's get some Guinness.
Yeah.
Let's stay here.
Yeah.
Also, like, they had problems at that dock, too. You know what I mean? Like, again, just not built for it.
Right.
So the Titanic weighed anchor for the last time at 1:30 p.m. and departed on her westward journey across the Atlantic. Now, E.J. Smith had to kind of shuffle the crew around at the last minute, which some people think like this contributed to the problem later on, because everyone wasn't necessarily totally aware of their position. You know what I mean? And like their duties, you know, as it were, I guess.
As far as the crew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the full crew and everyone. And again, like this is a brand new ship.
He was like the Mad Hatter, just change places.
Change places, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, like it was labyrinthine in there. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
hard to find your way around. It was a maze, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like people just weren't aware of certain things.
I mean, it's a maiden voyage too. Like, there's going to be some craziness probably.
Yeah.
Something will go wrong.
Yeah.
Like it'll fucking sing.
It was not smooth sailing.
Yeah. Well, the first 3 days of the voyage from Queenstown actually kind of passed without any incident. The weather was kind of nice. No incident at all.
The first 3 days?
Yes, the first 3 days. Yes.
Interesting.
And yeah.
Is it 3 days in the movie too?
It's technically 5.
In the movie?
Yeah.
That 5 days passes before anything.
No.
Oh, 5 days total.
The 4th day is when shit hits the fan.
Okay.
Right, late at night.
Right.
And right. The 5th day, you know, it's only up for a certain amount of time.
Okay. I didn't realize it was that many days.
Yeah. This should be very telling to you. Here's the speeds or the nautical miles that they traveled each day. The Titanic covered 484 nautical miles, which is about 557 miles on their first day. The following day, 519 nautical miles, 597 miles, right? So it kind of goes up there. And then on the final day, it was up to 628 miles. So they were really like on those 3 days. So that really shows you that they were going faster and faster, you know?
And in the movie, they say he's like, go fast. At the Ismay at one point in the movie is like, we need to go faster.
That is a myth.
Okay.
He did not tell Captain E.J. Smith to go faster
Because he needed to get there on time or something.
Well,
that was the reason?
they did reset the time of when they were going to get there early. They were shooting there to get there early, but they weren't going for the blue ribbon, like the fastest ship.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't going for that. So I don't think, you know, it is proven that Ismay did not do anything to make the ship go faster.
But somebody...
The captain never reduced speed, ever. Not once.
Right.
He had a haircut appointment that he was not going to miss.
Again, like, no one really thought anything of it. They didn't think the icebergs really even stood much of a risk. like, not to this ship at least. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
They already had, yeah.
They had, like, overconfidence in this ship.
Right.
They just blast
even
right
the
through them.
captain.
Fuck it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and, even a head-on collision, wouldn't be disastrous. Like, the Kaiser Wilhelm hit a ship head-on and was fine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And they were like, it'll be okay, you know?
It was the scraping and the multiple holes in multiple places that was actually worse. Yeah, we'll get to that, I'm sure.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, people are on the racquetball courts, they're in the Turkish bath, they're swimming in the saltwater pool and all that good stuff.
Cigar room.
The smoking room. Yeah. But I just wanted to read you the menu for first, second, and third class. This is only on the final day, April 14th. This is their menu for that day.
I bet everything's going to sound disgusting.
It might. To
me.
I want you to notice just how big first class menu is. This is all a la carte, so you can, you order whatever you want.
Okay.
Right, off of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, right.
Okay, I'm going to run through this.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this? Baked apples, fresh fruit, stewed prunes, Quaker oats, boiled hominy, puffed rice, fresh herrings, finnan haddock, smoked salmon, grilled mutton, kidneys and bacon, grilled ham, grilled sausage, lamb callops, vegetable stew, fried, stirred, poached, and boiled eggs, plain and tomato omelets to order, sirloin steak and mutton chops to order, mashed, sautéed, and jacket potatoes, cold meat, Vienna and graham rolls, soda and sultana, scones, cornbread, buckwheat cookies, black currant conserve, Narbonne honey, Oxford marmalade, and watercress. That's for breakfast.
Just straight
first
watercress?
class.
Watercress?
Just
Yeah,
watercress.
that's just like
There.
that's like a weed, basically.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like a sprout.
It's a sprout.
That you use for garnish, usually.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the ladies order.
Yeah, bring a plate of that.
She'll have a watercress salad.
Yeah, that's just breakfast. So you can kind of sit there and just sort of gorge if you want.
Okay, there's a couple things I would eat on there. It wasn't like
Yeah.
so bad.
I want to get them kidneys.
Ew. God.
Kidneys and bacon.
Is that what it was?
Kidneys and bacon, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Now that's a man's meal.
Yeah. That's what you eat before you go to war.
Yeah.
This is actually breakfast for second class on April 11th. So we got fruit, rolled oats, boiled hominy, fresh fish, Yarmouth bloaters, grilled ox kidneys and bacon, American dry hash au gratin, grilled sausage, mashed potatoes, grilled ham and fried eggs, fried potatoes, Vienna and graham rolls, soda scones, buckwheat cakes, maple syrup, conserve, marmalade, tea, coffee, and watercress.
Fucking watercress.
Okay, I'm way more into the second class menu, I feel like.
Okay. That's a different day. I bet there's some crossover.
The meats are different though, which is what I first class gets mutton.
Right.
Second class gets ox.
Well, here's breakfast for third class on the 14th. Oatmeal, porridge, and milk. And that's one thing. That's one thing that you can get, right? So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Smoked herrings and jacket potatoes. That's another thing. Ham and eggs. Fresh bread and butter. Marmalade, Swedish bread, tea, and coffee.
Meanwhile, all the bodybuilders out there are like, yes, that's what I eat.
I know,
breakfast,
that's
basically.
keto.
Yeah. Besides the bread and butter, but
I just want to. This is just crazy. This is dinner for April 14th, the last dinner that they would serve on the Titanic. They would have hors d'oeuvres, de varie, meaning that there's just sort of various hors d'oeuvres, oysters, consommé Olga, cream of barley. There's just soups. Salmon, mousseline sauce, and cucumber. Filet mignon, lily, sauté de chicken lyonnaise, vegetable marrow, farci, lamb and mint sauce, roast duckling and applesauce, sirloin of beef, chateau potatoes, green peas, creamed carrots, boiled rice, paramenter and boiled new potatoes, punch romaine, roast squab and cress, cold asparagus, vinaigrette, pâté de foie gras, celery, Waldorf pudding, peaches and chartreuse jelly, and then for dessert they had chocolate and vanilla eclairs with French ice cream.
Cool.
Wow. I mean, I knew what like half of that shit was.
Yeah, I know. It's all like French and Italian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think I would know more, but no.
Okay, so second class, not so crazy. Their first soup is consomme with tapioca.
Ew.
Yeah. And then their main courses are baked haddock and sharp sauce, curry chicken and rice, spring lamb and mint sauce, roast turkey with cranberry sauce,
Yum.
green peas, puree turnips, boiled rice, boiled and roast potatoes, and then for sort of desserts, they have plum pudding, wine jelly, coconut sandwich, American ice cream
Nice.
instead of French ice cream, nuts assorted, fresh fruit, cheese,
Dessert.
biscuits, and coffee. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of with you. I think I like the second class menu a
First
little bit more.
Well, that's how it always is with the fancy stuff. They're trying too hard.
Yeah. And here's dinner for third class. Rice soup. There's your soup.
Ew.
Rice soup.
Isn't that just porridge? Like, what's the difference
Yeah, I
between
know,
rice
right?
soup and porridge?
Oh, there's rice in there. I don't know. Fresh bread, cabin biscuits, which are it's kind of like hardtack or like a cracker. Mm-hmm. You know.
Oh, okay.
Roast beef with brown gravy, sweet corn, boiled potatoes, plum pudding, sweet sauce, and fruit.
Yeah.
And this was included with their ticket,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I mean,
That's why they're so expensive.
the tickets.
Yes, the tickets. And
Did
you
we
just
talk
order-
about the price of the tickets?
I don't know if I mentioned the price specifically, and I didn't write it down here, but they were much higher than most
Right,
tickets.
you said-
know,
yeah.
they're like I want to say they're like $500 to $800 in like today's money. So no small chunk of change
For a third class?
for a third class. And then like
Whoa.
second class was like $1,300 to like $2,000 like in our money. Mm-hmm. And like
Okay.
first class, some of these things they would go for like $10,000 a ticket. You know what I
Right,
mean?
if you
Like
have a
5 to
nice-
10, like yeah, the really nice rooms and things like that. And that morning,
Interesting.
during the Sunday service, remember I talked about how like the captain,
Yeah.
you know, he wanted to do a last one, right? Because he's going to retire.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And he actually allegedly, he cancels a lifeboat drill that morning so he can do this.
That's a good call.
Yeah. Later that night, of course, you know, probably wish they would have done it. But he does the Sunday service, and the hymn that he chooses to do for that morning is one entitled "For Those in Peril on the Sea."
Which is in the movie.
Yep,
Rose
it's very
sings
telling.
that
Feel
part
like-
of it, yeah.
All of this shit seems too convenient. Like,
Right, that
it's like
yeah.
all this is made up.
Cruel irony, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Just over and over. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was predicted in
Yeah.
a book before it happened.
Well, he said, like, E.J. Smith even said, like, we have more lifeboats than what we need to be in compliance with the law. Right? They actually did have more than they were required to carry.
so that
right?
law should probably be changed.
Yeah, it was woefully out of date.
Yeah.
Especially for the size of boats that these guys are getting, you know?
Right.
During the latter half of that day, April 14th, the weather had turned cold, and it dropped to about 33 degrees by 7:30 p.m. So really cold. It's really cold, just above freezing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a moonless night. It was clear. It was what they refer to as a dead calm.
Yeah.
The water was like glass. And this made actually seeing icebergs more difficult because you can't see the waves breaking off of them from a distance, right?
Right, which is
And-
mentioned in the movie.
Yeah, and it goes to show like how dark it was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
right.
Like it was incredibly dark out there. Like this is the only light out there. Like
Right.
this lit up boat. You
Right.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's very dark.
I mean, yeah,
you know?
they're literally, in the middle of the Atlantic. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
What light? And if there's no moon.
No moon. Yeah.
Wait, how is there no moon? It was
It was a moonless night.
cloudy.
No, it's totally clear.
It's probably a new moon.
Yeah. There's moonless
It's on the other side of the
nights.
planet.
Yeah. You can't see the moon.
But the moon comes
Your last
up at
name
night.
is Moon. How do you not know this?
Yeah, but you're aware that there's certain times.
Yeah.
It's not a full moon.
I
where
get
there's
that.
no moon out.
See, a moon is full when it's on the other side of the sun.
Right. Where this.
Which means it was probably a new moon around this time.
Yeah.
Which means it would have been not necessarily visible because it's hard to see that, but it would have been one of your daytime moons.
Yeah, it's a daytime moon.
Impossible.
No, the moon only comes out at night.
Exactly.
The moon
impossible.
always comes out at night.
Yeah, it only comes out at night.
Yeah.
Duh. That's like basic facts.
Yeah.
It's like basic moon
That's
facts.
just
It was a
mathematics.
moonless night. So
Moon mathematics.
it was darker than usual, and very cold.
And the moon just fucking fucked off, I guess.
It was like,
Took the night off.
Yeah.
took the night off. Yeah. I get that. We all need a day off,
Yeah.
Self-care
I
day.
need a bunch.
Yeah. Well, these Marconi operators definitely needed a day off. It had been a very long day for them, sending messages back and forth. Like people on the Titanic are like, "Send this, send this."
Call this guy butt licker.
Yeah, and he was at it all day, like a 12-hour day, just like handling all of this traffic, right?
He really had the
to and fro.
The Morse code for butt licker down.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting real tired of all of these prank telegrams that I'm sending.
Prank telegrams. Yeah.
Is your icebox running?
Yeah.
Well, you better go catch it.
Yeah.
You butt licker. Stop.
Yeah.
But stop, liquor, stop.
Yeah.
No, it's just butt liquor, then stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it
Oh.
right. It's one word.
Yeah. And he would have also, throughout the day, they received several ice warnings for this particular area. Like other boats were like, "Yo, there's a bunch of ice over here," and they're like,
You're like, we're the Titanic. Why don't you sit and spin?
Yeah.
I gave her middle finger.
kind of like they just kind of set them aside. I guess they weren't really passed on to the captain, or if they were, like, he was just like, eh.
You're like, I don't give a shit.
In the movie, they were passed on to the captain, and he ignored them.
Either they were
movie.
or they weren't. The
Right.
other way they were
I
ignored.
mean, how would you be able
Somebody
to know
ignored them.
something like
Somebody
that?
on the chain ignored them.
Yeah.
So that was true. I'm just bringing up
Yeah. No, you should.
stuff
you should.
about the movie because I want people to know,
There's
the parts of it that are true and
That's
real.
what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's-
there are parts that are certainly not true. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like-
we'll get there.
Like Jack wasn't even real.
Yeah,
It's a figment of her imagination.
It
yeah.
was real to her.
They never did reduce speed ever, and they even talked with like some of the guys that worked in the belly of the ship, like some firemen and people that worked down there, and they're like, no one ever told us to reduce speed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We were working at it from shift to shift, like all the time.
So some of those people survived. People
Oh,
that
yeah.
were working in the.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Do they know?
harrowing story.
Do they have enough coal to just fucking blast ass all the way across?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just tearing ass.
tearing ass. Yeah, 25 miles an hour. Which is way too fast to be going in this certain area.
Yeah. It's like I can't drive 25.
I can't drive 25.
It's too fast.
Yeah. If Sammy Hagar was alive in this era,
Yeah.
in this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with this all.
Yeah.
If Sammy Hagar was the captain of that
Yeah.
boat.
And I do want to make clear, just again right here, no evidence that Ismay wanted to keep up the speed or he had anything to do with the speed. He had nothing to do with the speed at all.
But it makes for good drama in the movie.
It makes for great drama. Yeah. And there's a lot of that that's going to happen.
But that's a real rumor, right? Like, the movie didn't make up that. Like,
No, the
people-
movie didn't make that up.
Yeah, they
That-
used it because,
Yeah, it was a real rumor that happened right away,
yeah.
pretty much, right afterwards.
Well, you gotta blame the captain.
Exactly. You want someone.
He's
Well,
not
he
the
wasn't even the
captain.
captain.
Oh, you're right.
He was the head of the White Star Line.
The
though.
captain
yeah.
went down
Yeah,
with the
you're right.
shit.
We're going to talk about that.
And of course, you're gonna hate the survive. I mean, if the captain survived, they would have hated him.
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
So like,
Yeah.
he's
It's
like
the next in
like
line.
if a movie sucks, you blame the director, unless the director died, and then you blame the producer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's like he didn't survive it.
Died in the
is-
making of the movie.
He went down with the movie. Yeah, it's producer's fault. This place that they're in right now, by the way, is now a place called Iceberg Alley.
Yeah.
So you can go and like see the quote unquote iceberg that the Titanic hit.
No,
That's not-
that's long gone.
Yeah. Like most
Global
icebergs.
warming. Thanks a lot.
It was gone. It was gone like by it didn't take very
By
long
the springtime of that year.
No,
It was apparently
it took
really
a couple
big
of
one.
years. It took a couple of years for it to go away.
How long do
So they
icebergs
tracked
last?
it.
Depends on where they are, but,
Yeah, that makes sense.
they'll go for years and years sometimes. They did track it. There are photos of what they think are the iceberg that sank the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. It towered, some people that say they saw it, say it towered anywhere from 50 to 100 feet over the deck.
Oh boy.
It was huge.
So it's even bigger below.
But like everyone
It's
says,
big.
yeah, about icebergs. They're
You know, the
bigger
old-
below.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's why they have the phrase "tip of the iceberg"
Or like,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
because they're bigger below.
Right.
Yeah.
There's more ice below,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
There is.
than up above
Which
the
is
water.
what hit, yeah, that's the part that actually hit the Titanic, obviously.
Yeah.
Was it the underwater part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would have had to been.
I don't know. I wasn't
I'm
there.
gonna talk about
okay,
it.
it's because I saw the movie. If you would have watched the movie like us,
I did watch the movie.
well,
I watched
recently.
I watched it in 1998, and so I got ahead of schedule.
So I did watch it. And then I watched Titanic 2, gang.
Electric Boogaloo.
It comes back from the dead.
I think they built another one. I caught the tail end of it.
I would
It was,
never. Who is like, I'm gonna go on Titanic 2.
Yeah.
Wait, this is a real? Or you're saying
no,
the movie?
It's a
is,
movie. In
Okay,
the
they
movie. It's another Titanic that they call Titanic 2, and they're going to do the same thing.
Does that
and
one
it-
sink?
and it sinks. Yeah,
Fuck.
it's very bad. It's
Wait,
a bad movie.
Sounds like, is it a B movie?
Yes,
Did
it
they
is.
purposely sink it? Because they're
No.
like, well, you signed up for the
I
experience.
don't think so. I don't know. Like it's a very bad movie.
Did the
sorry.
director survive the making of the movie?
I hope he went down with the ship.
He went down with the ship.
Is there a romance in it though?
Yeah.
Okay, because they
mean,
wanted
it's-
to do that
yeah.
part.
I imagine
And-
they're
and the-
less attractive than the people in Titanic 1.
I think that
Which is now what I will always refer to
Titanic Part 1, yeah.
as Titanic 1. They're like, have you ever seen Titanic 1? You're like, what?
There's a second one. I mean, I know there was 2 VHS tapes, but that's
No,
still
Titanic
the same
1,
movie.
the first Titanic.
No. Titanic 2.
I'm not talking about.
less.
I'm not talking about Titanic 2.
Titanic 2,
I'm talking
Electric
about
Boogaloo.
Titanic 1. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you already said that.
I did say that, and it was solid. Yeah, it needs to be said more.
It's funny.
The Jack character is
Yeah.
his name is Hayden
Oh,
because it's modern, you know.
Hayden Christensen.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah,
Actually,
his name's
Hayden
Hayden.
Panettiere.
Oh man,
I knew a guy
it's
named
really
Hayden
bad.
who passed away.
Yeah, you're bringing us down, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk about these other dead people.
Let's talk about the dead people from 100 years ago, not from
You're right.
now.
As I
Right,
said in the
right.
last episode, after 100 years, I stopped caring
Doesn't
about
matter.
them.
Yeah. After receiving multiple ice warnings by 5:50 p.m., E.J. Smith does decide to change course a bit and go further south to maybe miss some of these icebergs, right?
Miss me with those icebergs. He said, EJ Smith said, miss me with those icebergs, bitch. I'm going south. Except it didn't
Take it down to
work.
Kokomo.
Yeah, there you go. This boat's not gonna melt.
No,
If he
that's
does
the
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Get away from the icebergs.
Get
You'll
away
be
from
even
the
better
ice.
off.
Yeah.
We're going to the Caribbean now, bitches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Royal Caribbean Cruise, Lust for Life.
Right.
By Iggy Pop.
Yes.
It's the full name of the song.
Yeah. But he does not reduce speed at all. Still keeps up traveling at top speed this whole time. And then they do this thing that at a certain point they make a cut over because they know they want to land at New York. So he still makes the cut over, even though they go slightly to the south. It would prove sort of fatal to make that cut when he did. But he wanted to be on time, you know? And
He has that haircut.
yeah.
He made the appointment.
Yeah. Now, at 9:40 p.m., Jack Phillips is still hard at work in the Marconi room, and he's ignoring other ice warnings. They get a total of 6 that are either taken to the captain or not taken to the captain. No one can really explain exactly the truth on these
From
ice
cruise
warnings.
liners that were
Other
ahead
ones.
of them.
Yeah, that
and
were
they
in
were
this
like,
area.
be careful.
Yeah, the Californian was one of them. The Californian was stuck in the ice. Like, they straight up had to stop and they're like, we're not going to go any further. There's, like, ice everywhere over here.
Yeah, the Californian is all like, hey guys, there's a bunch of ice. And the Titanic was like, haha, adorable.
Yeah, they actually did.
Wow.
So this is actually what they told the Titanic, and they even said like they were like looking and they saw it go by them, and they're like, "What's that ship over there that went by us at like max speed while we're sitting here?"
Just tearing ass.
And they're like, "Oh, that's the
Tearing ass.
Titanic," and like so they called them and called him. It's over the Marconi.
Yeah.
But this is what they said.
They texted him.
They
texted him. Yeah.
They said this. Say, old man, we are stopped and surrounded by ice.
Stop.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they trying to get help, or they?
No, they were just saying, like hey,
we saw you.
You might want to
hey,
slow down.
We saw those flames on your boat, and we saw you tearing us, and we think it's really fucking cool, actually.
Yeah.
Painted race car flames along the side.
Yeah. Like, respect, bro, respect.
Tearing ass across the Atlantic.
I like that they bothered to tap out, say, old man.
Yeah.
You know?
Just being friendly.
Yeah.
They're like, we're stuck on the... we're beached on this fucking ice, so we're not going anywhere.
I guess it came over Jack Phillips's headphones, like, really loud, and, like, almost blew his eardrum out. Mm-hmm. And he was so annoyed, because it'd been a long day for him, that when it happened, he was, like, pissed off, and he sent him back this message, quote, shut up, I'm busy, I'm working Cape Race. Now, Cape Race is from Newfoundland, Cape Race, Canada. He's basically handling the traffic between the two. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm hard at work here. Can you shut the fuck up with these? I get it. Yeah.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
Yeah.
It was like too loud and he was annoyed. So
Stop
he
sending
said
me
that.
dumb shit.
And like the guys at the Californian were like, wow, okay. Fuck you then, man.
Yeah, we were being... Their message was super nice.
Yeah. And they decided to like cut like power to like non-essential things because they were just going to be there.
Because fuck it.
And the guy running the Marconi was like, pfft, and he clicked off the Marconi and went to bed. At 11:30.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah. Or 11:35 is
I'm
when
tired of sending out all these
Oh my god! Imagine just being the literally being the messenger between.
Yeah.
Fucking...
Yeah. So the dude on the Californian, like, who was the closest ship to them, wasn't even there to listen at the machine for much longer.
So that could have been somebody that could have potentially rescued them. Although they were stuck in the ice, what the fuck were they going to do?
They could still...
I think they could have made it a way through there. Now, we'll kind of get to that.
Tear us out of there.
Yeah.
We got a Titanic to save.
Yeah, we got to paint those racing stripes along the side.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why we brought all those gallons of red paint.
Yeah.
Let's get to it, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So at 10 o'clock, the shift changes, and the first officer, William Murdoch, he relieved the second officer, Charles Lightoller, as the officer on watch, right? They also changed in the crow's nest as well at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So the guys up in the crow's nest are now Frederick Fleet, and Reginald Lee. And they start their watch up there. And you just sit up there and you just look for icebergs. Like, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's a very boring, cold job. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I bet.
And they don't have binoculars because I guess they were misplaced, or they were like, you don't need binoculars, man. And they were like, okay.
Really?
So they didn't have binoculars. They had a bell that they would ring.
Right.
And they had a phone that they could call the bridge to. But those are the two things they had to see the iceberg. That is very hard to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. By 11 o'clock, most people have gone to bed by now aboard the Titanic. There's still some dudes like staying up in the smoking room, like playing bridge, card games and shit like that. There was actually a couple of card sharks that got on so they could like make some money, like playing cards. Yeah.
Are those guys in the movie?
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
The movie should have been about them.
Yeah, I know, right? These card sharks.
They're like playing, what's the Wyatt Earp game?
Oh, playing Pharaoh?
Pharaoh.
Yeah, just making a killing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rose and Jack were fucking
really wasn't
during that time.
that long ago at this point.
No, it wasn't. So at 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet spots the iceberg. He rings the bell 3 times. He calls to the bridge. Murdoch answers. Frederick Fleet yells into the phone the now famous line, "Iceberg right ahead." Mm-hmm. And Murdoch said, "Thank you," and hung up the phone.
Which is exactly how it was in the movie, if I remember right.
The whole thing took about 30 seconds to happen, which is just
iceberg.
So crazy. For him to spot it and then for them to start turning the ship. And Murdoch gives the order, the hard of starboard, which kind of, starboard is on the right side, so they're actually talking about turning to the left. Mm-hmm. So they're turn the ship left, right? They see this thing, they turn the engines like in reverse, from top speed to turn it in reverse and then try to turn it at a sharp angle to miss this iceberg. But any which way you cut it, it was too late.
So the ship it speeds up by just shoveling more coal, correct?
Right.
How would you switch it into reverse? Is it like a second furnace?
You can switch the propellers to turn in the opposite direction.
Okay, so you're just feeding the same.
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
the
this
same
is
engine.
This is the reverse furnace.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, quickly. The other one. Switch it to the other one. Yeah.
The reverse furnace.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I would have built it. It wouldn't. It probably didn't work. These people were smarter than me.
They just needed to back it up a little farther.
Yeah, right. Actually, there are people that say that because they reverse the engines, the way it all works, and I can't really describe it to you, but I guess it ensured that they would hit the iceberg. Mm-hmm. Where it was like, oh, that's definitely going to hit it now. And here's the thing about it, too, is how big this iceberg was, how hard it is, and just how much it weighs, it dwarfs the Titanic. It dwarfs it. And so hitting it broadside like that, like, it's much weaker on the side. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, if they would have hit it head on, they would have, a lot of people speculate that it would have crumpled the nose, and they would have otherwise been okay.
That actually makes sense that you would be able to survive a head-on more than you would a side swipe.
Right, exactly.
Like I was saying, where you're getting multiple holes, and the way that the ship is set up, you cannot have that.
Right.
But if you just had one fill up, one of your watertight, whatever, you would seal that immediately versus filling up 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, it just spread across a bunch of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure, you probably would have had some passengers die that were in the front.
Well, you could always, you can do certain things to get them out of there, in a timely fashion.
Right. But it would have been less than many that did die.
Right. Well, like the Kaiser Wilhelm did exactly that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, what are you going to do? You see that you're going to collide with an iceberg.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to not turn out of the way?
Yeah.
Like, that seems like a crazy thing to think about.
It's
no,
like
we're going to hit it.
Crash
it's like, what?
Right into it.
It's like the trolley.
Well, they were probably trying
it's the trolley problem,
It's the trolley problem
of.
in real life.
Yeah,
that's a good point. But also, like, when they're turning it, they're like, okay, we think we can avoid it. It's not like we are planning
Killing
on scraping the side.
No, they weren't planning on that.
Like, there's a third option here that is nobody dies, and it's you miss it entirely, which is what they
were trying to do.
If they were going slower, maybe they could have done that. Mm-hmm. Right? But they weren't.
Yeah.
So there's that.
You don't know how big the iceberg is underwater, right? You can only, like, predict where you think it might be.
When it towers over the
Titanic,
it's like, fuck, this thing must have been huge.
They're like, good thing it's way bigger above the water.
I know, right? Yeah.
They're like, I think you have that backwards.
I think you have it backwards. Yeah.
No. You're fired.
No.
Everything I know about icebergs is, they're bigger on top.
Yeah. Is that they're always bigger on top. That's okay, Homer Simpson. Now, I looked at a lot of sources for these episodes, gang. And I heard a lot of numbers for how big this gash on the side of the Titanic was. Mm-hmm. That the iceberg tore into the side. Anywhere from 220 feet to 300 feet.
How do they not have an exact number if they've
been
to the fucking
because it
boat?
May have degraded over time.
Metal's not going to
I think it hitting the ocean floor
tore it open further.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like it's hard to guess. I don't really fucking know.
I feel like it would, but
it's
I don't know enough about oceans to
I know
to dispute it.
But the fact of the matter is as soon as that happened, 400 tons of water per minute poured into the Titanic.
That's too much.
Oh my god.
I would recommend less water than that.
Yeah. And right away, Murdoch turned the switch to close the bulkhead doors. Mm-hmm. And one of the trimmers, as this is happening, he straight up came out and he was like, "Blimey, we've struck an iceberg." Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And so they're, running to get out of these bulkheads before they get trapped inside. No one did, but
that shit gave me so much anxiety in the movie as a kid.
I remember
I think that's the first time I ever had anxiety was when they were trying to get out of the...
And all the fires are being put out too, so there's a lot of steam in the air.
I remember an exceptionally long boring movie, and then it hits an iceberg, and then it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, I didn't give a fuck about a single
of.
thing that happened before. And that's the thing is, like, dude, I was like 14, 15 when I saw this movie. Of
Yeah.
course that's what I wanted to see.
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
for
Like-
sure. And as a 9-year-old, of course I wanted to see the
Yeah.
romance part.
Yeah.
As a little girl.
Now the Titanic could let me just say this again. The Titanic could float with any 2 compartments flooded, and any 3 of the first. So okay, this is only in the front. Okay, just in the front. The Titanic could float with any 2 of those compartments flooded, and any 3 of the first 5 compartments flooded, and the first 4 compartments flooded. It could still float with all of those things being true.
And how many compartments were
But
there?
not with. We're just talking about the front.
Okay.
Not with all 5 compartments flooded.
Right.
Which is what happened nearly immediately.
Basically, it's too heavy.
It's too heavy. So when it starts to dip, the water pours over those bulkheads, those watertight bulkheads, and then it creates a domino effect where the rest of the compartments start to flood.
And the movie
it sinks.
explains it very well. That
And
like
really
made
well.
sense to me. Where I was like, oh yeah, okay. So they only go up to a certain level. The water gets higher. It's just
Spills
pouring.
over.
You cannot
Yep.
stop it at that point.
Exactly.
So they're just
Yeah.
characters
They should have gone
explaining
higher.
this to others.
Yes.
We're like,
Yeah.
this is what's happening in our
Yes.
bulkheads.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do it
that's-
twice in
Yeah.
the movie.
It feels very expository.
It is.
Which I mean, he had to.
Yeah, you kind of do have to do that in that situation.
they-
I had to do it here.
Did
You
they
know?
find
Right.
do they find a reasonable way for a character to be like, what is going on down there? It's like fish out. You know how they fish out water characters in movies?
Jack and
that-
Rose
to
run through
explain.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they,
wait,
they run
so-
through that. They run through the whole ship
There's
to kind of
ways
show
to
you.
make exposition work. Like you have your fish out of water character.
Yeah, Jack and
didn't
Rose run through the
explain.
whole ship.
Yeah.
And certain things are happening in
And they're
different parts
fish
of the ship.
in water.
Yes.
It felt very natural, and the whole movie, Rose is kind of like has a developed relationship with Mr. Andrews,
Right.
and so when she's questioning him when everything's happening, it kind of makes sense.
Is that
'cause
Theoden?
Well, that's,
Theoden or whatever?
No, that's E.J. Smith.
Ah.
Yeah,
okay.
Theoden. Yeah,
no, he's the
that's Captain E.J. Smith. Yeah.
So Mr. Andrews, we talked about him.
Mr.
in part
Andrews, yeah.
one.
He's that guy, the nice guy, guy with the nice face.
So he
Billy
helped
Zane?
build it.
Not Billy Zane.
I know it's not Billy Zane. He's like the
Zane.
villain of the movie.
He was the designer. He designed
Okay, and
the
that's
ship.
why it makes sense where she's asking him like questions about. Well, at one point she's like, "What's really going on?" When they were
Yeah.
trying to like hide the fact that it was sinking.
Well, we're gonna
and she
really
told
talk.
him.
We're gonna get into that too. There's some truth to that.
Right. Well, it makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
hysteria.
In the front of the ship, where the cheapest rooms were,
Yeah.
it was a loud sound, and it knocked people out of their beds. And like one guy in like the most forward room that like felt it the most, he got knocked out of his bed, and when he started like putting his shoes on and stuff, his room was already starting to flood. Like for that guy, it happened almost right away. You know what I mean?
I'd go barefoot.
Yeah,
To be
yeah,
honest
right.
with you.
Yeah, your feet would freeze
Yeah.
off, man.
There's a recurring theme in almost every single dream I've ever had in my life where I can't find my shoes.
Yeah.
Really?
I take my shoes off and I don't know where. Like I'll be at the zoo in my dream and I'm like, fuck, where'd I leave my shoes? At the zoo
Wait,
somewhere.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. That's funny.
I also like I've heard people say that like they've never had a dream that involved your cell phone.
I never have.
every night.
I don't know if I
Every
have
single
either.
night.
Actually, I don't know if I have either.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. Sometimes I can't
Weird.
find it. Sometimes I can't type shit into it.
There's got to be a meaning behind that. Like, first of all, reoccurring dreams. I feel like there's
Yeah.
got to
Oh,
be
yeah.
something behind that.
Mine
I think
is
it's
really
anxiety.
strange.
It's all
It's
anxiety.
Oh, yeah. It's anxiety manifesting itself.
It's
in that way.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might be specific. I
I
don't
think
know.
mine's a variant of the Hat Man.
Oh, do you get that, man?
Yeah, but it's a variant. It's like an old man in
What's
in
the
a
hat? Man?
I had.
in a dusty black trench coat with the black.
I
wide
swear
brim,
I
like,
have a memory of
fedora
seeing.
hat.
That you see him in your dreams a lot, basically,
I've seen him in one dream that I've had multiple times.
and a lot of people.
I-
Other
oh,
people
yeah,
see
that's a
that?
thing.
Other people see a similar.
Look up the Hat Man.
Similar
I didn't
thing.
know that.
No, that's the
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
I before I knew this,
Yeah.
I had a memory of seeing the Hat Man in the doorway of my bedroom, and it was probably a nightmare, but
Yeah.
it was like really scary.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know the Hat Man was a thing.
I didn't know
was
the
a
Hat Man
kid.
was a thing for a
But,
very
like,
long time.
Yeah,
That would
apparently.
have scared me to like look it up and find out other people are.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
Yeah.
fucking.
It's super weird.
insane.
I don't know
very
what
weird.
the psychology is there, but like,
I bet
yeah.
it's cultural. It's got to be cultural.
Yeah, is it
It's
all
gotta be
people the
unique to
same
Western
age?
culture.
Like maybe it comes from something in media that we all.
I think
have
it's got
forgotten about
goddamn
at this
Quaker
point.
Oats, man.
Yeah, he had a big
It's
hat.
got to have something to do
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
The only reoccurring thing I've ever had in dreams is where I try to scream and nothing comes out, or I try to punch somebody
that's
and I
really common.
can't,
You can't,
punch
like,
them.
Do you have
Yeah.
trouble running? You
I
get
have trouble
that?
in my
running.
I get
dreams?
that, yeah.
I know.
I get that. The funny thing is, I used to get the punch thing,
Yeah.
and now it goes the other way, and I just fuck people up in my dreams.
Yeah.
And it's worse. It's sort of like, oh, I'm this violent psychopath, and I think that's also
That's another.
like,
That's
oh
a different
my god,
side.
I think
it's my rage coming out.
I really just need to like punch somebody in real life, and I think I will never have a dream like that again because
Yeah.
I feel like since I've never punched somebody in real life, I don't know what it's like, and so maybe my brain's like, I don't know what this experience
I
is
don't know what
like,
it's
so
like,
it ends here.
Yeah.
So like we can't follow through.
Have you ever been punched in the face?
No, I've never been
not
punched or
fun.
punched.
If you get hard,
somebody.
it'll fucking ring your bell.
Yeah.
It'll ring your bell bad.
Yeah.
I bet.
I've had it happen a few times. Most of them were drunken nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually when the fighting happens.
Yeah, I mean,
Not anymore.
I was
Yeah.
I was 16 or 17 when Fight Club came out, so
That's like, yeah. Ugh. Ugh.
That's bad time for that to come out
yeah.
as
Well,
a teen.
At other parts of the ship, and like, you know, if you were up in the first class areas, you didn't feel a thing. Most people didn't. Most people heard a scratching sound. Some people said that like it sounded like the boat started rolling on like a bunch of marbles, or like there was a tearing sound, like somebody tearing linen or something.
That's actually really interesting because like it
Yeah.
would be so loud. That's how big this boat was.
Yeah,
Right. Where it's
so
like
loud that some people it knocked them out of their bed, and like it was very loud to them. But other people they heard like a sort
when,
of.
that one
They're
time.
like, what was that?
I
You know?
wasn't home to
Right.
hear it, but that one time somebody crashed a car into my apartment building.
shit.
Apparently
Oh my
that was
God.
like loud as fuck.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
I
Yeah.
would imagine.
Oh
Yeah.
my god,
Fuck.
yeah.
Everybody, nobody was hurt.
Yeah,
to be clear,
that's good.
to people at home, nobody was hurt.
Yeah. Most people, yeah, if they felt it at all, they kind of went back to bed. They're like, what is that? Iceberg scraping the ship and it's going to sink? I gotta get some
Har.
sleep. You know?
They're like, well, I better have a good night's sleep then because
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get to those lifeboats in the morning.
Or they started, like, they just went back to their card game and they were like, you know, they, like, even joked about it. They're like, well, how about you bring a piece of ice for my highball?
Oh,
You know,
I
like
feel
that
like
kind of thing.
I want to say that I do feel like is that in the movie? That sounds so
Them
familiar.
kicking around the ice and stuff on the deck, that really did happen in, like, the,
No, I know
the
that.
aft decks where, like, the second class and third
But
class
something
guys
about like
were.
somebody joking around about using ice for their drink. That
Yeah.
sounds so
I
familiar.
think
a real
Jerry brought
thing.
it up before.
Oh yeah, maybe.
It might be in the
Maybe.
movie, but it's a real thing that did happen, you know?
Yeah.
I think that there's a certain thing where like people like you automatically when there's something goes wrong, like you
You don't-
automatically want to assume it's fine.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're like
You
oh,
downplay it.
I'll downplay
joke.
it. Especially like I remember having an earthquake hit us in Seattle. I don't think everything ended up fine, but
Yeah.
it's the only big earthquake I ever felt. This was like 2001, 2000, something like that.
Yeah.
And like, I remember me and my friend just like we're at school, we get under our desks, and we were like mocking the earthquake.
Yeah.
You know, we were just like, "Come at us, brother!"
Right.
yeah, I don't remember what we were.
That's
saying.
what you do, though.
But like,
you know,
I think that was just. I
it's a
think
coping mechanism.
we were like, oh, we're tough because but I think in reality, it's like that was a coping thing.
It was a coping
I
mechanism.
think in natural
Yeah.
disasters too, it's so like normal to like look at how other people are reacting and gauge
And-
your reaction based off of
Well, and
that.
that's how like mob mentality happens. Like if
Right.
the crowd panics, you panic.
right.
Like
Oh,
it's
dude.
just
Exactly.
how humans work. You
Yeah,
know.
when I was in Maui, one of those I don't know, they have these like giant sirens that go off sometime, and they test it, I guess. But I didn't know that,
Yeah.
and I heard somebody hear this loud fucking siren. I'm like, oh, North Korea's of course North
Here it
Korea's gonna fucking nuke Maui while
When you're
I'm
there.
on Maui. Of
I
course.
can't believe that there was actually a false alarm with
Well, it's
something
not-
like that. Like that.
Well, they
has-
had false alarms. Yes,
Yeah, that actually happened like recently.
Yeah,
And in
a few
this
years
case-
That'd have been
ago.
horrifying.
that did
Yeah.
happen. In
Yeah.
this case, I guess they test it, and I literally Googled it, and it's like this time, the first like Tuesday or whatever
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the month, at this time of the morning, they sent.
They test
and I
it.
looked at it, and go, Well, that's what that is.
That's a
so
test,
good.
yeah.
But I did look around. I was like, nobody's freaking out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You look around at what other people are
But
doing.
it's like, what did these people know it was a test, or are they also just been like, well, nobody's freaking out?
They probably knew because
probably-
if it happens monthly. I grew up in Minnesota where we have monthly tornado tests the first Wednesday of every month.
Mm-hmm.
You have a tornado test sirens. So like for somebody that's visiting, I'm sure they're probably freaking out about it. But for us, it's like
Tourist.
normal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was a
Yeah.
tourist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. I
Now
was
that-
Howley.
It's
Yeah.
fucking Maui. There's more tourists than
Natives.
locals. Locals is the word I
Locals.
was looking
Yeah.
for.
And
Yeah.
natives.
I always wondered like what
but they
happens
should-
if the emergency does fall on the same day that the
You're like, fuck.
test
You
Real
gotta
thing
wait
happens.
5 more minutes.
That's cruel irony.
Yeah.
That's when I would do it.
Yeah.
That's when I would nuke Maui.
if you were Kim Jong Un.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, perfect
I
time.
would absolutely nuke Maui at that point.
Find out when their test time is and do it on that day.
Yeah.
So it was around this time that Thomas Andrews and J. Bruce Ismay showed up to the bridge to see what was going on.
What's all the hubbub about?
Yeah. And Ismay, like, he throws on, like, an overcoat over his pajamas kind of a deal. You know what I mean? He's up there in that. And they talked about how, like, the compartment's filling, and they're like, no, it could float if it was this way or that way, but any which way you slice it, like, these compartments are going down. They're like,
We're fucked.
yeah, and like Ismay, when he showed up, like, they were talking, and like he was like, but is it anything serious? And like, you know, E.J. Smith like turns to him and he's like, I'm afraid it is, you know, and like they're like, okay, well, we got to do something now, you know.
So
Yeah.
they knew it was going down.
Yeah, although like everyone seems like they're just in denial, like they're like, what? Like, how could this be?
Right.
You know, how
The
could this
unsinkable
be?
ship.
Yeah. So like everything progresses very slowly because they don't want to raise a panic,
Yeah.
but they're also just like, I feel like there's this thought in the back of everyone's mind that like, I think we're still going to be okay. It's this big safe
yeah.
ship, you know, like,
Right.
but they have to go through the motions, you know, and it just happens very slowly, and that's a huge detriment to what's going to happen next. So those gates that we were talking about down in like the third class sections, a lot of those are still closed, you know, and like people have been wandering up and down it, like in these lower decks, like with their luggage and stuff, not really knowing what to do. No alarm has been raised or anything
Because
like
they
that.
had water flooding and they
Yeah.
were just like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Basically, okay.
And like the males are in the front, right? The single males are in the front, and like the single females are in the back.
All the single ladies.
Yeah, and you know, so like it, you know, like some people are like, hey, where? Like they asked a steward, like, where are the life belts? You know, in this place. Like I guess they're in every room. You know, where are they? And like the steward's like, I was unaware that we like
You
the order
don't
was
have
given to get like to get them. You know, like I didn't know anything was going on.
They're your seat cushion. Your seat
Yeah.
cushion turns into a life jacket.
Yeah. But like, you know, that's how it was. Like no alarm was really ever raised.
Right.
You know, so like this was like a big rumor that was passed around the ship, like, oh well, we gotta, you know, and like Thomas Andrews was like one of the few people that like ran around the ship being like, put on the life jackets, put on the life belts, like do all this stuff, let people see you wearing them, you know, please.
He wasn't in denial. He was like,
he knew.
this will absolutely sink.
Yeah, he knew the gravity of the situation.
Right.
And like E.J. Smith, he's trying to hold it together, and like he's like, yep, let's start, let's get this whole thing going, you know. Each of the Titanic lifeboats, they were provisioned with water and these tins of biscuits, you know, so if they're out there a long time, they had something to eat, right? And even they were like handing like bread into like the ship, you know, into the boats as well, like as it was happening. Some people had the foresight to like grab some oranges or like some things, you know, to like eat or ate beforehand.
Yeah,
you
stealing
know?
from the bartender.
Yeah.
So did they have, because I think in the movie they referenced that from basically the time of the hit, they estimated 2 hours before it would have
Before-
been on the bottom of the ocean floor, basically.
Well, yeah, and Thomas Andrews, yeah, he gives it about 2 hours.
okay.
You know,
Wow.
that's how long he gives it. It would go down in less time than that, but yeah, he gives it about 2 hours. Some people, you know,
Crazy.
because it's a rumor, Some people are like, we got 8 hours before this sucker goes down. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, we got 8 hours. It's gonna be, some people.
I'm gonna go
you know?
back to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
other people, they were like, she threw a propeller. And they gotta fix it. That's why we stopped. Because them stopping, that's what woke most people up. They're like, no way are we there already. You know what I mean? Like, how come we're stopped? And they're like, it's nothing. Everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
For a while, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, things just happened woefully too slow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what would lead to a lot of loss of life as well. Be another another factor of many that would contribute to the loss of life. The funnels at this time, because the fires are being put out, they start spraying the steam up through like the funnels, and it's ear splitting. It's so loud. Like by the time E.J. Smith is like lower the lifeboats, like this inexperienced crew that's never really worked with like the davits before, like, and they're all in a switched up position, like they're struggling to get like the first ones down and ready to do it, So that also contributes to how slow things are going, and they can't hear each other because it's so loud. They also do this in the movie with like the steam. It's so loud they can barely talk over it.
There's a lot of chaos with getting the lifeboats out in the movie.
Yeah.
And I always wondered if that was real.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was.
And a lot of guys in the belly of the ship, they would keep working in the aft parts of the boilers to keep the lights on. And they would do that pretty much until like it was impossible to be there.
Right.
Really considered heroes of this entire thing, the fact that they kept working down there the whole time.
Crazy.
Really amazing stuff. They even raised a couple of the bulkheads to ease the situation for a while until they couldn't anymore, and they had to close them again. Just to make it a little bit easier for them to operate. So at 12 a.m., the order for the lifeboats to be launched was given. Again, to not cause a panic, it was quiet. They tried to keep it quiet, which is so fucking crazy. Like there's no flashing lights. There's no everyone up to the lifeboats. There's nothing like that. You know what I mean? People are oddly calm because no one said anything. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, like, they're like, I'm not getting in that little boat over there. Like, are you gonna need a pass to get back on the boat after this whole thing is done? Like they're
stamp my hand.
These are things that they're asking themselves. Like, how am I gonna get back on? Like, people leave stuff in their room because they think they're gonna come back.
Right. Yeah.
They don't think in a million years this thing is actually gonna sink. And they don't really notice the damage until they're out in the boats and they're like, oh shit. Like the full front end is dipping into the water,
Yeah.
They don't realize that, And around 12:15 a.m., that's when Captain Smith orders Bride and Phillips, the guys at the Marconi machine, to send out the CQD distress call. And they're like, oh shit, distress call, like, this must be serious, And like, they send it out. It's before SOS. They actually just came up with SOS.
It's better than CQD.
Yeah, it's easier to remember.
Feels like a mouthful. Like,
it's easier to remember, and even the layman recognizes and can tap out an SOS.
Because of that Sting song.
Yeah.
It's
Sting
like
popularized it.
3 short. It's like 3 short, 3 long, 3 short or something,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's exactly what that is, yeah. They even, so they sent it out, right? And all these nearby ships are picking it up. And they start to send shit back, like, well, who's the closest, And he's working, like, trying to be like, I don't know which one of you is the closest, but whoever's the closest, you need to come down here.
Yeah.
Like, meanwhile, the Californian, who is the closest, we're like, just dark, And so, like, they're all trying to figure all of that out, And, like, even the captain, like, pokes his head in again, and he's like, you better use SOS. And he's like, okay. So he sends out the first SOS in history.
Oh, was that? Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. It's the
Because they had
first time. They just came out with SOS as, like, the new
That's the new
distress
hotness?
call. Yeah.
The new hot distress call. The new hot distress call just dropped.
Yeah. The one though that the Carpathia receives before they send out the SOS, it's at 12:20. This is what it is. It's so polite in that English sort of way.
Yeah.
Come at once. We have struck a berg. It's a CQD, old man. He just bothers to tap that out. I don't know. It's.
What is that from a fucking Christmas Carol? Like, that Ghost Christmas Present says, he's like, come forth and see me.
Know me better, man.
Yeah, know me better, man.
Yeah.
I find that very odd, and I'm sure there's something that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the Carpathia, they were going the opposite direction, right? But they turned around and they full steamed it back. And they're like, we're 3 hours out, man. We'll be there as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And like they full steam it down there. And like the people on board the Carpathia are waking up and they're like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like the ship is going absurdly fast. The heaters aren't working because they've shifted all the
Yeah,
power.
we're hauling ass.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tearing ass.
Yeah, they painted the flames and the rest.
Yeah, so they were really doing it. In the movie, they have Rose say something like there was multiple ships around them that could have came back and only one did.
Okay, she's talking about the lifeboats. We're going to get there.
No, at one point she says like there was like 4 surrounding ships and one came back and they were 4 hours away or something.
Well, the Carpathia was 3 hours away.
Or 3 hours, yeah.
And there were multiple ships. But in that point in the movie, she goes, out of 20 lifeboats, 1 came back.
Oh, no, you're talking about a different...
Am I talking about a different
you
part of
are,
the movie?
which does happen, yes.
Okay.
She does talk about that.
She's constantly going on about one boat coming back.
They didn't... yeah, and it's like, Jesus, how many times... Yeah, because they couldn't come back because they would have, taken the lifeboats. But no, she's talking about when they originally sent the distress call out, only one ship came back for them, even though there was multiple...
Yeah.
It was implied in the movie that she was saying, like, nobody except for the Carpathia came back, even though other people could have.
It was the closest.
Yeah.
And that's
even
why.
that was 3 hours away.
Plus the fucking...
The Californian was closer. But again, it was dark. And there were even, like, officers that were still looking at the Titanic, and they're like, she looks queer. Like, I don't know. It doesn't look like she's, like, doing well. And, like, the captain was like, it's fine. And, like, they even said,
Really?
like, they're launching something. Mm-hmm. Like, they're shooting rockets.
Yeah, weren't they shooting flares?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, like he was looking through, like, the binoculars, and he was like, looks like they're shooting rockets.
So
Oh
they
my
could see them.
God.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and
At
he's
some
like-
point, they have to be like, well,
How fucking
they're
dumb.
vertical.
Well, they straight up said, like rockets. Why are they shooting rockets?
Because it, like... And I'm sure you're going to get...
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll get to it, but, like, at one point, it
tips
tips
up,
forward
yeah.
so far it breaks in half.
Yeah.
At some point, like, can the Californians see this?
Sort of.
And they're just like, "Whoo,
Sort of.
we
They were-
should have saved them."
They're
They
like
were-
19 miles away.
They
at
were
the
too
most.
high on that California weed. They're like, damn, we're celebrating 420 early. And I think that ship's sinking, but I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think this weed's just hitting me really
And that
bad.
Morse code guy was fucking rude to me, so I shut off the
Yeah.
whole
I
thing.
shut off. I
Fuck
went to
that
bed.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes before like all this went
That's funny.
down.
I'd like to think if he wasn't so like, can you shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
Like if you would have been like, still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, fuck you then.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed.
Yeah. He reacted wrong in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one of the many small things that contributed
that added
to
up
this
to-
whole thing.
right.
Yeah. It wasn't like one thing that really sent him down.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Everything.
their speed is probably the biggest thing.
Right.
Honestly, to be honest with you.
Huh. But yeah, it doesn't help it when your closest ship you told to fuck off.
Yeah, right.
And then on top of that, you ignore iceberg warnings from
Yeah.
like 4 other ones.
Yeah, we're the Titanic,
6.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll crash right into those things. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's a really great story about the male ego.
Yeah,
Kinda,
it really
yeah.
is.
Like,
a really
all
good
of this
point.
is kind of leading me to be like,
You're like, it's the
"Oh,
biggest ship with the biggest
It'll
whistle.
never sink.
Do you remember when, like, one of the first, like, Donald Trump, when he was early in his presidency, like, dropped, like, the biggest bomb they had?
Yeah, it's
on
like it's the
somebody-
biggest one we got
like-
from the biggest plane.
Yeah, no, it was, he
It was something
deliberately
like that.
wanted the biggest one that wasn't a nuclear bomb.
Yeah,
He's
right.
like, drop that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
true. He bragged about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also the definition of toxic masculinity.
Fragile male ego. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fragility
Yeah.
of male ego.
Yeah.
That
Narcissist. Yeah.
main reason why people die.
Yeah. It's
Main
true.
reason why wars exist.
Hello, yeah.
mean-
Hello, Mary Shelley. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thomas Rowe, he was the quartermaster. He was actually on watch at the stern. He didn't hear anybody. He didn't see anything. No one told him shit. He was the last person on the boat to know about this whole thing. And he called once a boat was already in the water. We're going to get to the boats launching, but he called when there was a boat because he saw the boat and he goes, "Hey, do you guys know that a boat has launched?" And they're like, who is this?" I'm like, this is Thomas Rowe. I'm on watch. And they're like, oh shit, we forgot about him. And they're like, can you get down to the bridge as soon as possible and bring like the rockets that you have? And he's like, yeah. And he runs down there. You know,
I get to shoot off my rockets.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So like he starts shooting off rockets with like another guy, and like the guys at the Californian are like, I don't know why are they shooting off rockets?
That's so funny. They're like, this must be the new Disney cruise with their like, fireworks and shit.
Well, he's like, why are they doing it at night? That doesn't make any sense.
So you can see them better.
They didn't establish that yet. That like you can only fire like after this. We're gonna talk about this in the next episode, but after this, they were like, yeah, you can only fire like you can only do that kind of thing if you're in distress. So there's no confusion.
Oh my
you know
God,
what I mean?
the biggest dedoy in history.
I know, right?
Like, really? And it wasn't even, like, probably normal at that time. What, like, I mean, cruise liners at that time probably weren't just lighting off fireworks. I know they kind of do these days in some cases, but, like, I bet at that time it wasn't super normal. Although with the Titanic...
They don't know.
Such a big thing, they were like, who knows? It's a new,
Maybe they're just lighting off fireworks because they think they're hot shit.
Well, I mean, you can probably tell the difference between a flare and, you know, like...
You would think.
There's a firework that's...
Right.
It's, you know, fucking Royal Caribbean shooting off fireworks shaped like heroin needles or whatever they do.
Yeah.
I'm mixing up that ad with... train spotting again.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't help that in the movie Titanic, James Cameron absolutely uses the flares as a romantic element.
Oh yeah.
When
it has him firing
when
over the top
she's staring
of
up at Leo as she's going down in the lifeboat, and like the flare goes off over him. Like no wonder they did.
Yeah.
That's great.
No wonder they were confused. They saw the movie and then they were like, it's just Rose staring at Leo. And
they saw the movie before this happened, and they're like, let's do that thing from the movie.
Yeah. And as passengers are starting to like mill about, like at first they come out to see what all the excitement's about, but it's so cold that like they go back inside for a second and they're like,
yeah, fuck all
it's
that.
Chilly, you know?
Yeah.
But like as more people start like milling about, like the band comes out and starts playing. You know, and like they also want to calm people down. They know their job, and so like they start just playing their ragtime hits. You know, and like I actually because they do have a playlist on Spotify with like all the music, right? All the numbers, you know, that you can request, and it's all like ragtime stuff. It sucks that the entertainer wasn't one of them. You know, because like as the Titanic is sinking, you know, you know,
that would have been perfect.
I know, right?
That was a bop at the time.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of music they were playing.
Yeah.
You know,
they did Wedding Dance in the movie. I don't know if that was really on the thing.
It may have been. It may have been on the.
They'd say let's keep it upbeat.
Yeah. So they did play that, like, just this happy ragtime music through most of the whole sinking.
That's so crazy.
You know the song that they do play, like, when they decide to pack it up and then they, like, come back together?
Yes.
That's a hymn, and that's called Nearer My God to Thee. A lot of people think that that's a legend, that they played that song as it was going down. None of them survived. None of the musicians survived.
So it's like literally like this few number of survivors just taking their word for it kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and those survivors that did say that they heard that song, they were far away, and it would have been
stupid
hard.
People.
Well,
just not your brightest bulbs, that's all I'm saying.
There were other wrecks where they did play that song, and maybe that's what they were thinking of. And I'll kind of get to something later that maybe that's why they sort of mixed it up in their heads, because you're living through a traumatic experience where you kind of lose all sense of time and like space, you know, and like through the lens of memory and these things, like you can definitely get your wires crossed very easily during these things. That's not to say to discount everything that survivors say.
You kind of like almost trained, like you cause yourself to believe you remember something. Like when I saw The Hat Man.
Right. Yeah. There you go. So, you know, hard to say, you know, but
we'll never know. It's lost to time.
It's pretty much is. The people that were closest said that the last song that they played was a song called Autumn. That was the last song
they played 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
The hand that feeds.
Yeah. Head like a hole. I don't know. At 12:40 a.m., lifeboat number 7 on the starboard side was the first boat to be launched. This is, let's see, an hour and a half after they hit the iceberg. That's holy shit, like
Maybe
they lost a lot of time.
That's
yeah.
Lost a lot of time. There was 27 on board, room for 55.
Well, they had to go through all the arbitration first.
Okay.
All the standard...
It was an hour after the
and they said
Sorry.
to women and children only, show me your titties first.
No. Let's get to that. We'll get to that.
Show me your titties and I'll let you on board.
Is that a thing?
No.
You said it like you guys knew what you were saying. I was like, I don't remember that
We're
from
gonna
the
get to
movie.
women
They
and children
do in
first.
the movie, though, talk about how they weren't completely filled, and I always
Yes.
did wonder if that was true, because it's like in your mind, like for sure as a child, and like even now, you're just like, how is that possible? How could
Because
as a
they
child, you're like, how could people have fucked up? How could adults have fucked
They
up?
didn't. Yeah.
that
yeah.
bad, you know.
Well, they
You're-
didn't make it to the boat decks, to where the lifeboats were, all at the same time. First of all,
Okay.
and
also, it was just chaos with nobody knowing.
well, and they kind of
what they
like
were
looked
doing.
around and they were like, I don't see anyone else. Go ahead, lower it down. And that's really how it was. Like, no one was really at first. No one was really like trying to get in. They were just like, okay, yeah, you get in. And on the starboard side, it was just kind of whoever was around that they put in. They actually, a lot of men did get on the lifeboats on the starboard side. They were really strict about it on the port side, and we'll get to that here in a bit.
Okay,
But-
so it wasn't women and children first yet.
well, it was women and children first, but Charles Lightoller, who kind of commanded the lowering of lifeboats on the port side, took it as women and children only.
Right.
Right? And so
Ah.
he was more strict about it. But like on the other side, it was like, I don't know, whoever's around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, save
it was
lives,
a little
fuck
different.
it.
Yeah, it was a little different.
Wow.
Maddie, you
crazy.
mentioned when you were 9 saying
Yeah.
it and being like, how could adults fuck up this
Yeah.
bad? And
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
we all grow up when we realize that adults, we're like, holy shit, I'm an adult now.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I would. I could
I'm
see
just
that.
an overgrown
I
child.
just thought it was
Oh, no.
interesting because I saw this when I was 15, which is an age where you start to realize how fucking stupid adults are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like, oh,
Yeah.
this totally makes sense.
Yeah, I remember distinctly thinking when I was a kid watching that and being like, and then mentioning, oh yeah, the lifeboats weren't completely filled, and in my mind I'm just like, how is that possible? They already
would you
didn't
do
have
that?
enough.
What the fuck? Yeah,
like
yeah.
how, like and there's no way they must have done everything
It's-
perfect to save as many
Yeah.
lives as they possibly could have.
It's
Yeah, these are
easy.
adults we're talking about.
Right.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
also easy to like judge as an outsider, but like not
Yeah.
being there, like
Yeah.
is a fully different thing.
That's what drives me crazy about people.
Yeah.
Like, they'll be like, your house will never get broken into if you own a gun. It's like, my house got broken into. I didn't see the guy.
Right. You never
like
even saw him.
Like
Yeah.
this weird, like, oh, I'm gonna be a fucking cowboy in the moment kind of
Yeah,
fucking
no,
thing.
Yeah.
No. And it's like, are you ready to kill a person?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if they're a bad guy. Like, that's something
Well,
that's going to stick with you the rest of your life.
I've talked to people who are like some of the most pro Second Amendment people, and they're like, no, you don't. Even if somebody's has your TV, you don't shoot them.
No.
Like-
God, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, that's a thing for a different day.
Yeah, that's a bit of a change of subject.
Yeah. On Lifeboat 7, Dorothy Gibson, the silent film actress, and her mother were on that first
on the
lifeboat.
first one.
Yep. As well as
Firsties.
Margaret Hayes and her Pomeranian.
Aw.
Good thing we saved that.
Yeah, but it was
They're little-
mostly men actually on that first boat.
Pomeranians are little assholes, so you could have saved a better dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
They're cute.
Christ.
Yeah.
I mean,
There were a lot of dogs.
according to
injured.
Tyler,
We're
I
gonna
once,
talk about
and
this.
at one point
I
in
used
one
to-
episode, I said the phrase, I like a palm from a distance. And Tyler thought that.
Oh,
Apparently
yeah.
I said that. Because
Yeah.
they're cute.
They are
But they're
cute.
little fuckers.
I used to want one so bad, and then
Yeah, I had a friend who had
realized-
one, and you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small
Some
dog
people-
syndrome.
Some
Yeah.
people even refuse to get in. You know, like some women even like got in, got out. They were like, I don't know about all this. You know, like I'm
Probably
gonna
seems
stay.
scary. I guess if you don't really realize the true what's happening, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on that little thing
Yeah.
in this water. In
And
the...
one lady was like, she's like, I've never been in a boat in all my life. Like,
You're in a boat.
no, well, a ship is much different.
I
Like,
understand.
and even like the crew were like, you know, there's a big difference between like a boatsman and like a sailor.
Oh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, do you actually
Right.
sail a yacht or do you work on a ship? Like that's
Oh,
those
yeah,
two
of
things are
course.
completely different.
well,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
sailing is insane.
Yeah, yeah. Just because you work on a ship doesn't mean you're a good sailor.
No,
you know what I mean?
jeez,
or that
no.
you even know anything about it. You know?
If you knew anything about sailboats, you know they're way fucking different than a normal boat and take a shitload of work and
Yeah.
are very scary.
Yeah, yeah. 12:43 a.m. Lifeboat 5, also on the starboard side, that was launched. Herbert Pittman, he was ordered by Murdoch to take command of that boat. A lot of the crew survived, more crew per capita than any other class survived.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, because they were tasked with like manning the boat, and like they didn't know how many people were able to row, so they were like, well, we need some crew down there to like row the boats away. You
need to know that you need to know that the people are. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the crew being.
No, that makes sense. I'm just surprised. I would not have thought that at all.
Per capita, more crew survived than any other class.
I'm going to say that, like, when I've worked at places, like, when I worked at Trader Joe's, for example, if that were to start sinking into the ocean, I would hope the crew survives more.
Right, no, for sure.
But Murdoch shook Pittman's hand and said, "Goodbye and good luck," and got him into the ship, and it was a mix of women and men as well. Murdoch, his body was never recovered. We don't actually know what ever happened to him. Mm-hmm. He is the guy in the movie that shot himself after shooting a man. Mm-hmm. That did not happen. And his family was very mad about that in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, how did they know that didn't happen if they never found his body?
Because there were some people that said that they saw one of the officers shoot themselves. And some people said it was E.J. Smith. Some people said it was Murdoch. Some people said it was, the first officer. We don't know. But the thing is it's not confirmed evidence that he ever shot himself. He definitely didn't kill anyone. In the movie, he shoots a guy, and that's why he shoots himself.
Fabrizio's friend.
Yeah. Bastardo.
On accident, yeah. He shoots his friend on accident because he's like, just there's people trying to go after it.
Mob the boat.
It was an innocent killing, but
and we'll kind of get there because that happens later on. But that didn't happen to Murdoch. We don't know what happened to Murdoch.
Well, he probably fell in the water and got eaten up by
he helped people into boats the entire time. He was a hero. He really was.
Yeah, but it's not that they didn't. I mean, the movie, I don't feel like they didn't make him necessarily have to be an asshole. The whole him killing himself in the movie was because he was like so fucking overwhelmed with everything that was happening. It felt like understandable and like you could empathize that he did that.
It just didn't happen though.
I mean,
the family was mad.
No, you're right. I understand why the family would be. I do.
Right. If the legacy is wrong.
It's tarnished, At that point, It just didn't happen. And millions of people saw this movie,
Like, even if, like, within the movie... Well, my point is, within the movie, if you can justify his actions, which sounds like you can, that didn't happen.
I felt like I could. I felt like when I saw him do that, it was
But that type of thing didn't happen. Like, we'll kind of get there.
Right.
We'll kind of get there, but, like, that type of thing didn't really happen. And by the way, the Californian did see all 8 of their rockets. They fired 8, they saw 8, and they still didn't come to their...
Aren't they stuck on the ice, though?
Well, we'll kind of get there because in the 3rd episode, we're going to talk about the aftermath and the fallout and the investigations that happened after this and what happened to all of these survivors. It's really fascinating.
That actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
It's extremely interesting. They should have had that in the movie. Yeah, that'll be our 3rd episode.
I know, that would actually be a great movie or
actually,
part
there's
of
a lot to that.
Like the investigation after the fact.
Oh my god!
In the movie, that sounds interesting to me.
They did make a movie about it. It's a kind of a B movie, but they did make a movie.
But I need James Cameron to make it.
It's called like Titanic: The Investigation, and I think it's like made for TV or something. Yeah. But anyway,
I could have cut out all the love stuff.
Yeah, it's just the investigation, so it's kind of dry, I would imagine.
But it's interesting.
Nerds like me.
Sounds interesting to me.
Well, I mean, that's
I feel like
how
it would be like Zodiac, which is really just about an investigation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how we know a lot of the stuff that we know is probably from that right directly after what people said.
Yeah. Yep.
Otherwise, how are you going to know Lifeboat 7 was the first one?
Right.
Lifeboat, who the fuck is going to tell you that?
How did people know the exact specific time?
Because of the survivors, and we'll kind of mention a few things. Like, some of them were wearing watches and did look down at their watches at certain times and said certain things out loud. We'll kind of get there. Like historians over time, this is a big event. In the lexicon of like Western thought,
absolutely.
People have really pieced a lot of stuff together.
I remember learning about all this stuff in elementary school before this movie came out. It was always a big deal.
Wait, really? You learned about Titanic in school before the movie came out?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow,
we
I definitely did not.
Because the movie came out.
But also,
for sure, me too.
Yeah.
You're a bit younger than me. I feel like you probably would have too.
Yeah, you're right. I might have.
It's just you live in a post-movie world.
Post-Titanic,
I lived in a pre-movie world.
I had a book that I bought because, remember Scholastic book fairs?
I love Scholastic book fairs.
That's how I got all my Calvin and Hobbes books.
I love Calvin and Hobbes, but I bought a book from there that was just about the Titanic and about the movie and the connections to like the real disaster and all this stuff. And I wish, honestly, I probably could find that book again, but it was so interesting.
Yeah.
Even as like a 10-year-old.
I honestly think it was the first historical thing that really like made me interested in history.
Well, it helps that he was so actually quite accurate.
And there's things you're going to notice as we move on
right.
that are in the movie just sort of in different places.
Right.
You're going to notice. At 1 a.m., lifeboat number 3, also on the starboard side, was lowered. It had 39 people in it, 12 of whom were a part of the ship's crew. Passengers calmly entered the boat, men and women, and when no more were around, about 10 stokers from the bottom of the boat also jumped in the boat, and they were lowered away. Henry Sleeper Harper, that was his name.
Solid name.
He got in the boat with his prized Pekingese.
Mm-hmm.
His Pekingese was named Soon Yet Set, was the name of his Pekingese.
Yeah. Is it a race Pekingese?
Huh?
Like a race? Like a racehorse?
No, I think
dog?
it was just a exotic dog. This is a time of like exotic breeds.
It just sounds like a racehorse name to me.
Yeah. It was the time of like dog breeds and like really perfecting dog breeds and stuff. And he also got his Egyptian dragoman on there as well. He hired him while he was on vacation in Egypt to be an interpreter as sort of a joke. And was with him on the Titanic. A dragoman is an interpreter.
Okay.
That's what a dragoman is.
That's the like excessively rich.
Yeah.
Like, that's just
giraffe money.
You're just like, fuck it. I'm gonna hire
as
this
a joke.
As a joke.
Yeah, I'm gonna hire this interpreter.
And just take him with me everywhere.
You know?
Oh my god.
So the dragoman, he got saved, which is kind of cool.
Well, that's good.
You know?
Yeah.
People shouldn't be that rich.
No,
that's all I'm saying.
No, he basically owned this man.
Yeah.
You know? Like he's only on the
like
Titanic
when you can do
for this
that
guy.
just as a joke.
Yeah.
Like no.
Yeah.
But
Pay
if
more
they
taxes.
work hard enough, they deserve it.
But they don't. Their parents are rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they probably are rich from ripping people off, like
Yeah.
every rich person.
Yeah. You don't get $1 billion from not ripping people off.
Yeah.
There's no way. It's impossible.
Of the 12 dogs that were on the Titanic, only 3 survived.
Oh.
It was that Pekingese, and it was 2 Pomeranians.
That survived.
Yeah. There was actually a bunch of French bulldogs
Oh.
that, like, I think,
love
like,
those.
one of the founders of the French bulldog was bringing over these show French bulldogs over to America to, like, he was really big in, like, that world, you know?
Yeah, it's
They
like
all
Best in
perished.
Show.
They all
Christopher
perished.
Guest, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You ever see that?
That's a Thanksgiving favorite movie of mine.
That's a great movie.
I need to rewatch it. I saw it for, like, when it came out.
I watch it almost every Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It's a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like,
Yeah.
Addams Family 2 is another.
Oh, yeah. Addams Family 2, Best in Show. Yeah, those are Thanksgiving
Planes,
movies.
Trains, Automobiles.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I watched that the night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know?
Yeah.
And then those 2 movies the day of.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
that's solid. That's
I
a
watched-
solid lineup.
It's solid.
Birdcage is my Thanksgiving
That's a
movie.
good one.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
good
I was
one.
just talking to Danny about that because I was like, I called it the wrong name because I'm Chris Whedon and that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I was like, you ever see?
Le
I think I
Cage
said like the
40.
Bird Trap or something.
The Bird Trap? Yeah.
She's like, you mean the Bird Cage? And I'm like, yeah, with Nathan Lane and
Yeah.
Robin Williams.
that's a
Robin
great
Williams,
movie.
yeah.
I love that movie.
Only because
And Gene Hackman.
Yep.
Oh right.
Yep.
Somebody-
He plays her dad.
The Republican, like...
Right. Yeah.
He's
yeah,
the
yeah.
reason they hate Robin Williams has to pretend to be straight.
Yeah.
Right.
And Gene Hackman, who's a Republican, like, senator or something, he has to get in drag. He has to go against that to
Danny had me
avoid the
watch
mob.
Welcome to Mooseport with Gene Hackman.
That's his last movie, you know that?
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
Yikes.
It sucks that that's his last movie. He's a good actor.
Going out on a bummer.
Yeah. He's in his 90s.
about
He's
going out on a
Sean Connery's last movie, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It's the last live action role. I think he did a voice, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, anyway, it was around this time, around 1 a.m., that water was seen at the base of E-Deck.
That's not good.
And that's not good. It's really starting to rise. And again, as people are getting in these boats, they're like, what's the big idea? You know, and then they kind of get away from it, and like they're seeing like the whole front end like dip into the,
Fuck.
you know, like the mailroom's totally full.
It hasn't broken half yet, right?
No, not yet.
Okay. I'm not trying
like,
to spoil it, but come on.
Yeah.
You gotta
I think-
zoom out and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Yep,
I think it was.
See the forest for the trees, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Exactly.
one of the like tennis players that like scheduled like a 7:30 a.m. At the racquetball court,
Ew, athletes.
squash court.
Can't
Yeah.
relate.
And he was like, I guess I better cancel that appointment. And like the guy next to him was like, shut the fuck up. Fuck you. And he's like, okay,
And
sorry.
he punched him in the nutsack.
Also at 11 a.m. on the port side, lifeboat number 8 was
Finally.
lowered down. This had Lucy Noel Martha, the Countess of Rothus, the Countess in it. She would actually, later in the night, she would actually man the tiller. Like, she kind of took charge of the boat a little bit.
What's the
She's
tiller?
like how to turn, like steer
like
it.
a rudder?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the rudder, like
Okay.
steering it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she manned that. She's really interesting. We're going to talk about her in episode 3.
Exciting.
About what happens to her. She's pretty cool for like royalty. she's
Yeah.
pretty
That's
cool.
pretty rare.
Yeah.
I'm not, as you know, I'm not a fan of royalty.
Right. Yeah. Neither am I. Now Isidore and Ida Strauss, they're offered a seat in this same lifeboat, number 8. However, Isidore Strauss, he refuses because he's like, because on the port side, remember, they're like, women and children first, and he's like, well, I'm not going to get in until all the men are allowed to get in, so I'm not going to do that.
No, it's like a male white knight, right?
Yeah, it's
Sure,
like a white
yeah,
knight.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like he's trying to act like he's,
He's the fucking savior.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I was
The
Ida,
going
white
another
knight.
way with it,
Yeah.
but that's cool too.
well, Ida Strauss, like, she was like, well, if he's not going, I'm not going.
Male rights activist. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I,
They
Well,
didn't
I
really
guess, yeah,
I
you're
thought
right.
he was more the way I took it. You were basically saying like, no, he needs to make sure all the women and children get on.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm not going on until my fellow men get to go on.
Right.
Right.
I took it a little.
It could have been
down.
either way. It's either like, but the male white knight is faking it to look like.
Yeah. So
We're gonna
Better
talk
to
about
women.
that.
So
yeah.
fuck this
We're gonna
guy.
talk about that.
piece of
yeah.
shit.
Either way,
I'm glad he's
sucks.
dead.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Did he
talk
die?
about that. Oh yeah.
Good.
So Ida
Oh, yeah.
Strauss did
They
not
all
get.
died,
She didn't get in the
eventually.
boat.
Most of them.
And she was like, "We've been together for so long, and I'm not gonna.
This
Wherever you go,
So
I
this
go."
is the
what she
Rose and
said.
wait.
No.
So-
This is the old couple.
Okay, I thought you were telling me that this is what
They're the ones
Rose
in the
and Jack
bed.
was.
They were
based
the
on.
ones in the bed.
The
They-
Macy's. The
Yeah,
Macy's.
the Macy's
founders.
owners. Yeah,
Okay.
the Confederates. Yeah, they stayed, and yeah, it's this like sort of love
Okay,
story.
maybe he doesn't suck because
And
he's like older and he
Also,
probably
they're
was.
the Confederates. Can you?
They were Confederates.
Yeah, of course
Remember,
they
they were the
So
they
they
were the
do
ones
suck.
that when he was younger, he ran the Union blockade for the Confederacy.
I'm having emotional whiplash on this guy. I don't know where to land on him.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Don't
is he
feel too
good?
bad for
Is
him.
he not?
Yeah.
Yeah, just really don't.
I love Macy's, but like I hate Confederates. But also, he
is a-
probably loved his
you
wife. or at
love
least,
Macy's.
Okay,
What
I
about
don't
the
love
Thanksgiving Day
Macy's.
parade?
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't love Macy's. but
It is kind of a beautiful story to have like this old couple just decide
Right.
like fuck
we're
that.
old. We
We're
don't.
gonna-
We're
You know-
old. We're rich. We lived our whole lives.
But it's not really
we
about
owned human beings.
Yeah,
and we
yeah, all
fought to
that's true.
continue to
All
own
that's
human
true.
beings.
All that's true.
Based off the color of their skin.
But the reason why this is like a lasting thing is because out of sheer love for each other, they decided to go down on the ship together.
Did he own slaves?
Yes.
Yeah, fuck him.
But how do we know
family did, at least.
that
His
that
family
is
did.
the reason why they? I guess.
Because she said so. She said, she says that we've been together forever. Wherever you go, I go. I'm not going to go anywhere
Oh,
without
that's
you.
sad.
It's very sad, actually.
They also saw
Fuck.
Still very
the
sad.
winds of progress were changing. They're like
we read Colonel Archibald Gracie's Lost Cause myth stuff, and
Yeah, they're
even
like,
we
we
don't
might-
buy it.
we might as well just fucking.
Fuck this.
The world's going down in flames, just like every goddamn
Just like
older
this
generation
fucking bump.
thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like
America's going in the wrong goddamn direction. That's what I'm telling you.
yeah. It's like tales old as time.
Make America great again.
The older generation thinks the younger generation
Yeah.
sucks. It's
They
happened
always do.
every goddamn
Tales as old
every
as
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Things were so good when only white men had any power.
And that's actually what he said before
Yeah.
they.
That's the time period making
Yeah.
America great again is
Yeah.
talking about.
But by far the saddest group in first class, the saddest group in first class was the Ryerson family. They had 2 children with them, but they were going back to the United States because their eldest son was killed in an automobile accident, and they were going there for the funeral. They were in mourning the entire time. And when they got to board the boats, their 13-year-old son, Charles Lightoller, told him, like, no, he can't get on board. And, like, you know, Mr. Ryerson was like, yeah, he can. He's staying with his mother. He's only 13 years old. And so they let him on. And, like...
But he's a little older than that. Huh?
Well, Lightholder was like, no more boys. You know, like, he said that, you know. And, you know, that's how stringent it was on the port side.
Yeah, so when they were mourning their dead son, would they dry their tears with, like, $100 bills?
Yeah, right.
I feel like sometimes, like, my absolute, like, callous way of viewing the rich. Yeah. Some people are like, I mean, come on. I'm like, no, fuck that.
Well, I do feel like, and we'll get there in episode...
You know, poor people die in automobile accidents, too.
Yeah. And we'll get there, too, like... Because some people have a lot of money, they get a lot of hatred from the public at large. That's something that the poor never really do have to deal with. I'm not saying that... I'm just saying that, like, wherever you go, people don't like you. You know, like, everyone knows who you are. They don't like who you are. That's going to really come into focus in the next episode.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
We'll talk about that later.
Being hated for your massive wealth and comfort... is something that the poor will never understand.
Yes, well, it's not just that, but like surviving.
I know, I'm being a dick.
But so that family survived, who you just said, the Ryersons.
The mother and the
did.
2 children.
Oh,
but not the husband.
And not the one who died now.
Come on, that's not that tragic.
But still, I mean, she lost her husband and one of her children. You know, like.
Well, she already lost her children before that.
Yeah. Also, they're all rich, so we'd be better off without them anyway. So.
It just goes to show that money doesn't give you happiness. Yeah. It just goes to show you that. They weren't happy the rest of their life. They were mourning the rest of their life.
But also, whatever. If that's the most tragic of the first class, then that actually makes sense.
Sure.
It's not like your whole family died.
That's fair.
That's a good point.
Some people did lose everyone.
Right, exactly.
One unnamed woman, you're going to love this, Maddie. She got out of the lifeboat and ran away. And as she was running, she says, I forgot the photo of Jack.
No. Really?
Presumably, she ran down to the room and she made it back to the boat and was able to get back in. There was another woman also that said, wait, I forgot something. Ran back to her room in second class.
It was her iPod.
It was her hat. She was sort of a poor
What,
Irish...
Is she Indiana Jones?
She
was Mary Poppins and she needed her hat.
She was sort of a poor Irish woman, and her most prized possession that she bought before she got on the boat to go to America to start her new life was this fancy hat. She spent a lot of money on it.
Makes perfect sense.
And the reason why is because at the time, hats were... very important to female
first
fashion.
Class, right?
And she was like, every woman in America wears a hat, and I need my hat for going to America. So she ran all the way back there, got her hat, got on the boat.
Wait, she wasn't
almost fell down the boat.
She wasn't in first class, right?
And rappelled down.
Okay, so she was second Indiana Jones.
Yeah. She rappelled down with her
she's
hat.
also definitely not Mary Poppins because she just would have used her umbrella to fly away.
Right. And I was confusing Mary Poppins that her hat was magic, but it was her bag. I'm sorry.
It was her bag? What about her umbrella?
Well, her bag was the thing where she could pull anything out of, right?
So she could pull out a magic umbrella.
And her umbrella is the flying thing.
And she could have pulled out 100 more lifeboats.
Remember in The Simpsons when they had a Mary Poppins episode, and they're like, I think we'll be seeing her again real soon. And she's flying away, and she gets scooped up in a fucking airliner.
She gets hit by an airplane,
So what's the story of the woman who had to go back and get the picture of Jack? Is that fake?
That is something that a survivor said happened.
Did they base the movie off of that? I know he based it off of something.
I bet that's where he got the name Jack.
I bet that's what
I bet he's used Jack.
Was her name Rose?
No, it's an unnamed woman.
Oh.
So there you go.
Unnamed. So it could have been
Rose. Any name. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It could have been
Stuart Bucator.
It could have been. Or it literally could have been any name ever. It could have been,
Except for it doesn't make sense, actually, because at the end of the movie, she says she doesn't even have a picture of him.
Yeah, because she dropped it.
So
and she also wasn't in a lifeboat.
She also wasn't in a lifeboat.
Well, she was for a little bit in the movie, and then
is that right?
She jumped out.
Yeah,
she jumped out of the lifeboat.
Yeah, because she.
It was the stupidest fuck. Yeah. Yes. Anyway,
she's in love.
Actually, I think twice didn't she get into a lifeboat?
No, she got in the one, and then she jumps out. on A deck.
Okay.
So she's on S deck, on the boat deck.
Yeah.
And they lower it down to A deck, and they stop again to pick up people.
And that's where she jumps out.
That's where she jumps
This is
out.
actually a very Romeo and Juliet style story because these kids are
certainly
fucking
is.
morons.
They're morons.
It makes a lot of sense.
Well, Jack even says
They're
that was so
17.
stupid. That was so stupid.
Yeah.
And it was.
Well, that's oh my God, that's the most romantic part. When they meet up at that part and he's like kissing her and he's like, that was so stupid. Why did you do that? And then she was like, you jump, I jump, because that's what he said to her when they first met at the back of the boat when she was going to kill herself. Anyways, you don't need me to retell the story.
Yeah.
I didn't remember any of that shit because that's not the parts that interest me.
Well, moving right along, at 1:05 a.m., lifeboat number 1 on the starboard side was lowered. There were 12 aboard with a capacity of 40.
Did you say 5 a.m.?
105.
Oh,
105.
I was like,
You're like, what? Yeah.
it sure is hanging out, huh?
No, there were 12 aboard. It could fit 40. This is the one that had the least amount of people aboard, with the richest people and then crew.
Well, the rich people don't want to share it with
This
a bunch
this
of
is the
people.
one with Sir Cosmo and Lady Duff Gordon aboard. Yeah, Sir Cosmo, he's the Earl, right? And like Lady Duff Gordon, she's the one that like she designed female fashion. She designed like lingerie.
Those would be
It
great.
was very naughty back in the day.
Those would
Very
be great
naughty.
names for cats.
Oh yeah, yeah. Lady Duff Gordon
And Sir Cosmo.
Yeah.
Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon.
Cosmo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are great
Sir
cat names.
Cosmo and Lady Duff Gordon.
Yeah.
Is it too late to change my cat's
Yeah, I
names?
know, right?
No.
It's never too late.
Not really.
People are going to think it's from Fairly Odd Parents, though, because that was the
I thought
name
that
of it.
too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cosmo
really?
and Wanda.
Cosmo and Wanda.
Okay.
Yeah.
They will. They will.
As
Well,
the
yes.
as the boat went down, because like they also had like their maids, you know, and like help with them.
Okay.
Mrs. Duff Gordon, she goes, "Oh, there goes your beautiful nightgown," as it goes down into the water. And, like, the crew was like, yeah, but we lost our kit. That's everything we have. And, like, now our payments stopped. Like, we're not even being paid for this. And now we have to rebuy our kit and all this
They're
stuff.
like, yeah, but you're poor, so...
Yeah. Well, Sir Cosmo, he goes, I'll give $5 to each of you right now. And, like, later, it looked
Did
like
he?
a payoff. Yeah, he did. But it looked like a payoff later.
It probably was.
And, like, there was some stickiness.
It probably
People
was.
didn't like that later.
It probably was.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
I'm glad they got paid, but fuck that guy.
People looked at that as, like, you had your own personal lifeboat
Yeah,
that you paid
did he
off.
pay them off to basically be like, don't pick anyone else?
probably-
That's how it was viewed.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly how it went down.
Are we sure? I'm of the opinion
The
that
crew
is what happened.
corroborated the story, but again, they were
paid off.
Yeah,
The
I'm
crew
just
that
saying,
paid off
This is why the argument happened later.
the crew that got
Unreliable
paid off
narrators.
It's
stood by him.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it's true.
How much was $5 at that time? It's probably pretty
It's
good.
a lot.
It's a good amount of money.
I mean, for those guys, it is.
Yeah,
you
they're
know?
poor as shit.
and now they're not being paid. You know, so
Yeah, they needed something.
yeah. At 1:10 a.m., lifeboat number 6 on the port side was being lowered. This is a very famous lifeboat, and you know why? Because
Why?
Molly Brown was on it.
Yes,
Margaret
Kathy
Brown
Bates.
was on it. Yeah, and the lookout, Frederick Fleet, the guy that, you know, iceberg dead ahead, he was on that boat too,
Okay.
helping to man the boat. It was commanded by the quartermaster Robert Hitchens, another quartermaster, Robert Hitchens. He was at the wheel when the Titanic struck the iceberg, which is interesting, sort of ironic that Molly Brown was with
Was she with?
these two guys.
Was it James Caan? Was she with James Caan?
James Caan wasn't in that movie.
No, but he was in Misery.
Is he the one that, she captured and broke the
Yeah,
ankle?
they brought
yeah,
the
yeah.
bed onto the...
Yeah.
and she's like, I'll break his feet again.
Yeah.
If he doesn't write my fucking book.
She got on...
You ever see that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, she got on that boat with Mrs. Helen Churchill Candy, which a bunch of men wanted help onto the boat. I guess she was really pretty and they wanted to help her onto the boat.
Yeah, I would. It's like Anya Taylor-Joy in The Northman. Everyone's like, let's take this girl as
Let's
a
take
slave.
her with us. Yeah, let's
It's
get
like-
her in on the mix.
She looks
Yeah.
like a Valkyrie. Let's take
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
She's a little skinny for a Valkyrie, I'm going to be honest
Yeah.
with you. I feel like...
Yeah,
It's
she-
just the blonde hair.
Yeah.
Like, that's why. Yeah. Mrs. Elizabeth Jane Rothschild was also on board as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to come back to this boat later. And then, so, as third class is sort of like, they're still milling around. They still don't really know what to do. There are places where they're blocked from coming up because there are places where you can't access, like, the first class areas of the ship. and this includes the areas where you would be evacuated. So there's places where you can't really get to unless a steward were to come down and like get you out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
now
shit.
So they're trapped.
It's a misnomer that they were locked down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a misnomer, and that's a fabrication. It's not true in the movie that they were locked down there
They
and
have
whatever.
multiple scenes in the movie where they were locked down.
Yeah, I remember that. Weren't they handcuffed to something?
Well, Leo was handcuffed to something,
handcuffed.
but it was outside of that.
Yeah.
It was because he allegedly stole the Heart of the Ocean.
It was like 30 years ago they saw this movie.
It wasn't that long ago.
25.
Yeah.
That's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. No, it's mainly that the stewards were trying to, like, hold them back. And they were like, let's maintain, you know, like, let's not everyone panic, let's maintain. And he would escort groups of people up and down. And it took just even longer to
That's
do
not
that.
nearly as exciting for a movie.
It's not. No.
Like,
but
remember that
you
part
can,
in the movie where they'd be like, let's calm down and maintain, and everyone does.
Yeah.
But it also could have been like in a way to exaggerate the difference in the classes, and I don't know whether or not that was true, but like just to show that priority was given to a certain class and not to
And
another.
it was. It was.
that's definitely
by the fact
something I
that
remember
by the
from the
fact
movie.
that he had to escort them up there. They couldn't go up there through their own free will.
Right.
And some of them did. They found different ways up through, and they
Yeah.
did. And like they would emerge and not know where they were on the ship.
Right.
And be like and like wander towards like the where the boats were.
Right.
But this happened extremely slow in the grand scheme of things, of like people coming out. So certain people felt like they were trapped. But they weren't really. Time was just of the essence, and no one seemed to have that urgency, right?
So do you feel like the chaos of the movie at that point in time in the movie when they're just loading people on the lifeboats is not accurate because it was extremely chaotic?
But not at this point.
Okay.
It is later on, and we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Is that when the
It is
band's
later
playing?
on. The band's playing this whole time.
Yeah.
We'll get to where the band can't survive playing.
The
anymore.
band was the best part of the movie.
You remember nothing.
I remember the band.
Well, yes, and then I guess it was for you.
Yeah.
The best
I
part.
remember a few things. I remember when the guy hits the propeller.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily like there was at a certain time there was policy before this on other ships that like okay, women and children first, then first class, and then everyone else.
But also,
It wasn't policy on this ship, but it was still sort of adhered to. Where they're like, well, we can't let that third class rabble just come up here. They're going to cause chaos.
certainly not.
Because they're not like us Englishmen, kind of a deal, And they're like, Americans,
Right.
Englishmen, same thing. But these
Yeah.
goddamn
Yeah.
everyone else,
The underclass. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyone that caused any sort of havoc on the ship, they were blamed for everything. You
The
know what I mean?
Irish.
Irish, or as they said, Dagos.
Oh.
Because it's French, Italian, whatever.
The group.
Some of those guys. Yeah.
It's
It's
the
what
modern
they-
term for barbarian.
Yeah, but
You know what I
they
mean?
called them that. They called them that. During the investigation, they called them that. At 1:20 a.m., lifeboat 16 on the port side was lowered. Not a lot is known about this boat. It was mainly second and third class people that were on this boat, but it was lowered so badly and in a hurry that people thought that it was just gonna crash because it was like, one side, like they were definitely in a hurry, lowering this thing down.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh fuck! When it finally like slammed into the water, they were like, Jesus Christ,
Okay.
the 6 male crew and like there was also 3 stewardesses. But there's probably 30 passengers, primarily third class at this point. That started to come up to the
That's it?
actual loading decks.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it of this particular boat. Yeah, and they start to
I
basically
see.
go up. Like, you'll notice like 12, 25, all first class people it seems, and crew. And then all of a sudden at like 1:15, 1:20 a.m. That's when we start getting third class people in the boats.
Okay. And sorry, remind me how many lifeboats were there?
There's 20.
That's it.
That's it.
And that's why they can
they
get these
didn't
down
launch
to
all
the
of them
number.
either. Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay.
Oh, they
We're gonna get to it.
Yeah, because we talked about how they weren't all full.
Yeah,
But they
we're
also
gonna get
didn't
to it.
launch all of them.
What
Yeah.
the fuck? Well,
We're
they're
gonna talk
showing the
about it.
movie one kind of like sinking almost.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
What the fuck? That's crazy.
A Mrs. Wells, who was on board Lifeboat 16, she had this to say, and I'm gonna include this because I just think it's fascinating. This is one of the boats that we just don't know much about, and that's kind of why I like this. Quote, as soon as the boat struck water, the seamen began pulling away with all their might. As we got away, we saw a lot of wild-eyed men come rushing up from the steerage. But they were met by a man with a gun who pushed them back into the crowd of men and said, "Stand back there now. The first word out of you and I'll..." I didn't catch the rest. Some of the men from the first and second class cabins were standing beside the officer. There were about 40 or 50 in our boat. She's mistaken. There's around 30 in the boat. And I couldn't get a chance to sit down, but stood up, keeping the babies warm and dry in my skirts, under her dress. She kept, like, the children, because it was just, it was better, it was warmer there.
She's again like the ghost of future present.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah. Yeah. The sailors pulled at the oars, for all they were worth, but the boat kept drifting back against the ship. Finally, we got away 100 feet, and we didn't have any more trouble. We spent the night in that boat, and were picked up at daybreak. But, like, that really does paint a picture of, like, seeing on the boat, like, oh god, there's people rushing up and causing more havoc. And, like, they did hand out guns at one point, like, just in case you need them, man. And people did,
to shoot each other?
To shoot people that got unruly.
Well, that was a direct... What she said is a direct quote from the movie. When he says, really? stand back, or I'll... That's right before that guy who kills himself.
He doesn't say, I'll shoot you all like dogs, though.
Oh, because he says that in the movie, right? He says, I'll shoot you all like dogs. Yeah. Which I wonder if James Cameron, who's clearly was a nerd.
He's a nerd for this.
And probably, might have gotten that from that quote.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he just filled it in for like better dramatic effect.
Because she said she didn't know what he said, right? So
exactly. At 1:25 a.m., lifeboat 14 on the port side was lowered. There was a growing panic at this point. Several male passengers tried to jump in. Some were pulled back out. This is the lifeboat, number 14, that 5th Officer Harold Lowe, while people tried to rush his boat, he pulled out his gun and he fired 3 times. This is the gunshots the people heard that night. No one was hit. Nothing like that happened, but he fired it to like get everyone's attention to like calm everyone down.
He was on a lifeboat and people were trying to rush it.
He was loading. Yeah, he was loading people in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like in the movie or whatever.
And
that happened.
He would actually take command of that boat 14 as well.
Okay.
He actually is quoted as saying, "If anyone tries that again, this is what you'll get." And he held up a gun, right? And like, I guess some like kid, probably some teenage kid, jumped in the boat. And he was in the boat and he was like, "Get out of the boat, get out of the boat." And he was pointing the gun at this kid, and like women and children are crying all over they're like, are we straight up gonna see somebody get shot right now? And like the kid just begs for his life. "Please, please don't make me get out. Don't make me get out." And a little girl straight up tells Lowe, like, please don't shoot the gentleman. Please don't shoot him." Jesus. And so he doesn't, and he lets the kid stay in the boat.
What is the cutoff
so
for women?
Fucking crazy.
I mean, what is the cutoff for children though? Like,
I don't know, because it's so very nebulous.
Yeah, I think they just say women and children, so like teenagers are on the gray area.
Yeah, on the port side again, they're really strict about it, but on the starboard side, they're really not. And even when the ship starts to list too, like they're like, "Run to the other side," and so they do, and it does for a second even it out a little bit, which is so weird to me.
Yeah, crazy.
Now, at 1:30 a.m. on the port side, lifeboat number 12 was lowered down. Most of the passengers in this boat were second-class ladies. When they were in the water for a while, they did encounter lifeboat 14. So, when they were down there a while, some of the boats came together and tied up together. And that was boats 12... 14, and I think another one, and we'll kind of get there. But they were the ones that kind of, when they tied up, they kind of switched things around so one of the boats could go back and look for survivors. Yeah. Lifeboat 9 at the very same time on the starboard side was lowered down. Mrs. Frutrell, I don't exactly know how it's pronounced. She was separated from her husband and sort of forced to get in this boat. She didn't really know what was going on. She just sort of ended up near boat number 9 as it was going. They're like, get on. And she was like, okay. And she believed about 30 people were in that, including 17 crewmen. And she thought that most of them were stewards and cooks. Mm-hmm. They were probably stewards. And only a couple of the people from the kitchen actually made it. Mm-hmm. Made it, survived the whole thing. Because, again, they weren't really considered crew. They weren't considered passengers either.
Right.
So that's what they were fighting.
They work in the kitchen, the lowest of the low.
Well, in the kitchen, these guys, they, a lot of them only made it because they were dressed, like, in civilian clothes. Mm-hmm. And so they thought that they were passengers. And that's how they made it.
Nice.
Which is fucking crazy. Like, they were out of their work clothes, Mm-hmm. And that's what saved them. Crazy to think themselves. About. Yeah, I think, it wasn't intentional, but there was also a Mrs. Aubert and her maid that entered the boat. Mrs. Aubert, she was kind of hysterical. She was, like, crying and screaming the whole time. And they were like, okay, get on the boat. Like, hurry up, lady.
Yeah.
They kind of had to help her in there.
Yeah, women,
Hysterical.
There was like a woman in an early James Bond movie.
Yeah. There were some second-class ladies that were also helped on the A deck as it came down to A deck. There were some stewards that helped out some passengers. Some of the stewards, like, they convinced some of these rich people to get on the Titanic, and they felt responsible. Like, I'm the only reason why they're here. Because, like, they were like, I like you. Here's a big tip.
Right.
So they wanted
Yeah.
to serve them again. So, like, they took real good care of them. And, like, the steward didn't make it, but, like, the rich people that, like, he's like, here's an extra sweater, sir. Like, they made it, because they felt like some kind of duty attached to them,
Duty.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing. But, yeah, when no more women were around, again, on the starboard side, they let a few men in and lowered it down. But there just weren't, like, every time they looked around, there wasn't anyone over there.
Interesting.
It seems like most people were on the port side. I don't really know why. I think it might be because the boat was listing towards the starboard side, because that's where, the iceberg hit.
Do you think that... Yeah, that makes sense. But do you also think that people were... that's why they're more frantic to get people off the other side?
Maybe.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes, if they didn't have any luck on the port side, they went to the starboard side and had luck. So there was definitely that kind of dichotomy there.
Right.
Right, because, it's not hard to get to the other side. Actually, they do kind of reference that in the movie, too.
Yeah.
About trying to get to the other side to get on a lifeboat.
Right. At 1:35 a.m., lifeboat 11 on the starboard side was heavily loaded and was finally taken down. It had somewhere between 58 and 80 people on board. You can really sense the sense of urgency as time goes on. Because, again, we do know that it went down at 2:20 a.m. This is 1:35 a.m. They don't got a lot of time.
Yeah.
And shit is getting...
And it's probably a lot more vertical.
Well, the nose is really starting to sink.
Right.
And we're going to get there, like, remember the Marconi room is just behind the bridge. And when that starts to go down, that's when really it's all lost. You know what I mean? That's when it's really fucked, at that point. Yeah. So they're still loading people through. The first claim that there were 58 is probably close to the truth. There were about 10 children on the boat and about 30 ladies, including stewardesses that were in there as well. There were 3 men and some 16 to 18 male crew, so close to more like 60 people, 58 to 60. 80 seems kind of crazy. At 1:40 a.m., lifeboat 13 on the starboard side, Dr. Washington Dodge was the only first-class passenger in the boat. Perhaps 25 women and children, 15 or so male passengers, and 25 male crew members. 60 or perhaps a few more in total in that boat. But the thing about Lifeboat 13 is while it was going, Lifeboat 15 was loaded down on the same davit and almost crushed Lifeboat 13 as it came down. And, like, guys straight up had to jump up on 13 and cut the rope to let it, like, whoosh, into the water.
So that was true in the movie.
That was true.
That exact scene happened in the movie where they had to, like, cut it with a knife.
Yeah, it drifted close, and, like, then they had to cut it because the other one was coming down on top of them.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have put that in the movie, by the way.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Of course.
Yeah.
If that actually happened. I mean, it did, but...
I always wondered if it did, because I was like, that seems crazy, but yeah.
You got to put the craziest shit in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's around this boat, around Lifeboat 15, where people claim that, like, the guns came out, like, they start shooting people and stuff. There's no real evidence of that around here. August Abramson and Johann Sundman, they said that everything was calm and orderly when they got into the boat. There was no rushes. No one rushed towards the boat. Samuel Rule thought there were probably 68 in it, including women and children. So probably 60 in there as a whole. Charles Dahl thought there were 82 people in it, but, you know.
So the capacity is 55.
Right.
Right.
There's probably 60.
There's no way they're going to load it up
60.
to 80. Yeah, that shit would have been like sinking if you're
there's
like
no way.
overloading it that much.
Right. At 1:45, the second lifeboat, number 2, on the port side, was lowered with 4th Officer Joseph Bonsall in command. Mm-hmm. It's just one of the later ones to go down. 1:50, lifeboat number 10 on the port side. Among the occupants is a 9-week-old Milvina Dean. She was the last living survivor of the Titanic. She died in 2009 at the age of 97.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the last living survivor.
Well,
she was
only
an infant.
9 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, she was an infant.
Although, wasn't that Madeline chick pregnant and had her baby?
Mrs. Astor?
Yeah.
Yeah, she would have her baby.
So
She's
would
alive.
her baby be
She's alive today. Yeah. We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah. Okay.
Lifeboat number 9, 56 people were aboard, nearly full, around the same time. Lifeboat number 4, around the same time. This is where Madeline Astor, she boarded, because her and her husband, John Jacob Astor IV, like, John Jacob, he was like, no one's going to be safer in that little boat than this boat, you know? And, like, he actually took a knife and, like, cut into one of the life jackets to, like, show his wife, like, the cork that made it possible for the things to float.
Yeah.
And it was also, like, this idea that, like, you know, some people were like, I'm not even going to wear a life jacket. It slows you down. Yeah, it keeps you afloat, but, like, if you're going to try to swim to something, like, it's just in your way.
What are you swimming to?
I know, right? Like, it's these disaster moments.
Swim back to Europe.
Well, like, these disaster moments where people start to say, this is what you ought to do. It's the opposite of what they're telling you to do. You know? This happens all the time. Like, COVID. We need to do the opposite, actually.
I see a lot of weird, like, a lot of connections here.
Yeah. What we need to do is the opposite. Stay on the boat, you know. But yeah, she was on there. She was helped onto the boat by her husband, John Jacob Astor IV. He actually asked if he could join, and because it was on the port side, Charles Lightoller, he was like, no, and he refused. And so he didn't press the issue. He stepped away. His body was eventually recovered and identified as his.
Yeah.
But he didn't make it. No one really knows exactly what happened to him. In the movie, he is depicted as being on the end of the ship with Jack and Rose. He's like that guy that, like, takes the sip out of, like, the flask.
Oh,
and, like,
really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be John Jacob Astor.
Okay, interesting.
Pretty sure. Yeah. It's around this time, around 2 a.m. or approaching 2 a.m. where E.J. Smith, you know, he's been up there this whole time, like, with bullhorns and being like, women and children first, you know, everyone to the lifeboats, you know, and, like, people are like, okay, and, like, one lady's even like, hey, what do we do? And he, like, ignores her, and, like, women and children first, you know, and they're like, you'll be fine if you just get to a boat, you know, and he finally goes down into the Marconi room, and he goes, well, boys, this is a direct quote, well, boys, it's every man for himself. I release you. Because, like, they kind of, like, looked back at him like, what? It's like, yeah, I release you. Go, abandon your stations. Move it. Every man for himself. And they're like, and, like, Phillips, he stays at his station. He stays there to tap out, like, last-minute SOS calls. Just to see if anyone closer can find them and get them. True hero of this whole situation as well. And so, after that point, it's hard to pinpoint where E.J. Smith ends up. There's like 100 stories of how he died or where he went after this. This is really like the last time he's confirmed to be alive. You know, there was a guy that said he checked the bridge and like the wheelhouse and no one was there. You know, so we don't know where he went. And, you know, we'll kind of come to it, but there's legends as to what happened afterwards. Some guys of the crew at that point, every man for himself, leapt overboard right that minute. You know? But a lot of them climbed up to the top of where the captain's cabins were to undo the collapsible lifeboats.
Okay.
And they were really hard to launch because they were all tied down. They had these canvas things that had to be pulled up, and it had to be set up. You know? And so there's a few of them up there, like, trying to get this figured out. Yeah. And they're like, shit, we got to launch these. We got to, you know, so they're working hard on doing that as this is going. It is a legend that the last thing E.J. Smith told his crew was, be British.
That sounds...
It's fucking propaganda, is what it is. And they're trying to sort of salvage his reputation.
Right.
Because while he was down in the a la carte restaurant, you know, rubbing elbows with the rich elite of England and Philadelphia, New York society, they had hit an iceberg and he wasn't giving orders. You know what I mean? And he wasn't reducing speed when he has all these ice warnings. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why he says certain things like, be British. You know, some people say that, you know. It almost certainly didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
At 2 a.m., they finally got a collapsible lifeboat C on the starboard side to launch. This is the last lifeboat they will launch. Yeah. Like, actually launch on the davits. This is one where J. Bruce Ismay gets into. He looks around. There's no one else there. The guys in the boat are like, get in. And he gets in. And shit's looking grim at that point. And he gets in. And honestly, on his way down, he's like, fuck, I've made a big mistake. I should have gone down with this boat. People are not going to like the fact that I've survived this. He knows this right at the beginning.
Jump in the water.
You know? He knows it right at the beginning.
But I mean, you could live. Like,
you could live.
I know.
They're telling you to jump in, and this boat is going down fucking now.
Yeah, I mean, would you really, like, I get it. Your survival instinct. Like,
totally.
Of course you're going to.
Absolutely.
Anyone would have.
Yeah, and he does, you know, even he realizes that people aren't going to recognize the nuance of, like, no, dude, this is the last one they're going to launch. Like, it's it. This is it, you know? People aren't going to really pick that out of the information. They're just going to see, oh, the leader of the White Star Line, this multimillionaire survives, huh? That's all they see. And he knows it.
I get that.
He knows it right away. It's at this point that the Titanic's bow has sunk low enough that the stern's propellers are now clearly visible above the water.
Yeah.
It's starting to tip up. It tips around 20 to 30 degrees. We don't know exactly, but it's about 20
It's all based
20
off of eyeballing it, I would imagine.
Right. 20, 30 degrees out of the water is how far it comes. And it's at that point, and a lot of people say, I heard a big old noise. And right at the waterline is where it cracks. And the stern of the ship falls back into the water. And it doesn't break right in two. There's a piece on the underside of the ship
bent. Like,
that still holds it together. And it basically pulls it into the water. And as it pulls it into the water, the ship starts to turn upward. And the whole ship stands totally upright.
Vertical. Right.
Totally vertical. And like,
this is the image I think of when I think of the Titanic.
Yeah,
like,
and some people say that it looked like a finger pointing in the air. You know, and as it starts to tip out of the water, this is when all the power, all the lights go off. And it becomes so dark. Again, a moonless night. It's so dark. It's really hard to see what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, so eyewitness account, I'm not discounting eyewitness account. I'm just saying, like, keep in mind, it was pitch black out there. You've just gone through something that this is in the course of an hour or so.
Right.
You know, like hour and a half for some of these people. And now the ship is sinking. Like, it happens so quickly. And it was such a mind fuck for these people that, like, their reports are going to be inconsistent with the truth.
So from
sometimes.
the point it breaks in half to the point it goes under is a very short period of time.
It's very, very short.
Because that's, like I said, that's
about 20 minutes.
That's the image I always have. Is like it breaks in half and then goes vertical. Like that's... But that I just kind of imagined it kind of being vertical this whole time, but I know that's not true.
Well, as it's really starting to come up, this is where water is coming in.
It's just filling everything at that point.
Yeah, this is around 2:05 a.m. They're getting collapsible D off the thing. They get maybe 20 people in that, but they don't do it right. There's standing water inside the boat, and they don't do it right. There's about 20 people in there, but they go off. Phillips sends his last distress signal around this time. Water's pouring in to the Marconi room as this is happening. He reportedly makes it to the overturned collapsible B, and it's on the other side, and they can't get it flipped over as everything is happening. And everyone's trying to work, but water's rising up around them, and they're like, oh, fuck. And this is where Phillips gets swept out, and his body was never found.
Right.
And a big reason why his body gets swept out is because at that same time, one of the funnels breaks and comes down and crushes a bunch of people in its way, and this big wave comes out, and it's good for the people on the collapsibles because it kind of washes them out of the way.
Right.
Anyone that clings to it, like there's Charles Lightoller actually gets stuck underneath one of the collapsibles, and there's like 30 people eventually on top of it. And he has to swim underneath in order to get on top of the on top of the overturned lifeboat. There were 30 guys, 30 people on top of this thing, just standing. They stood there the entire time after the boat went down. Yeah, crazy shit. Jeez. Yeah, and that's 2:15 a.m. when collapsible B and A are washed out. It was swept away, and there's all these people. But as the boat is really going down, there's two guys of note on top where Jack and Rose were as the boat is really going into the water. That's Jack Thayer, 17-year-old Jack Thayer, and his friend that he met on the trip. And
Fabrizio.
No. And his
were they
friend,
already friends?
Yeah, they were.
His friend sort of jumps down close to the ship and is never seen again. Jack is like, yeah, I'm right behind you, and he's actually a pretty athletic kid. He swam a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And when he jumps away from the ship. And he's in the water, and he swims, but he swims to that overturned collapsible, and he climbs on. Along with Colonel Archibald Gracie, he's on there as well. Charles Lightholder, again, he had to swim out from underneath it, and he got on there. But there were so many people that they pulled up that, they were like, this isn't going to last if we get too many people. And there were a lot of people around him. And, one guy, slaps another dude with an oar who tries to get on. He swims around, and he gets on the other side.
Damn.
Yeah. It's such a fucking crazy story. And, I guess one guy washes up, and he's like, let me on. And they're like, I'm sorry, old chap, but there's no more room. You're going to swamp us. And he goes, that's okay. God bless ye. And then, swims away. And some people are like, that was the captain. And it's like, bullshit, that was the captain.
Yeah.
He considered himself a captain in life.
Yeah.
Okay, so James Cameron might have based some of Jack
things
off of that guy.
Yeah. Anyone named Jack, it seems.
Exactly.
Probably a pretty common name back then.
Yeah.
Right.
But once it really turns up, it again, it's lost power. It's in total darkness. Yeah, it sinks. It smashes back down. Not quite like in the movie where it and there's all those people in the water. Not quite like that. But as it sort of bobs and then goes down at about 35 miles an hour, they assume.
Okay.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Straight down.
Yeah, it is. As it disappears, it's 2:20 a.m. And we know that because of a guy in a lifeboat that looked at his watch right as it happened and said it out loud. It's 2:20 a.m. And that's how we know.
Some people probably were like, at least the one, if you're out on the lifeboat just watching it, you're probably making a point to.
Oh, yeah.
Think about what time it is.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to have to tell people about
I'm
this.
going to have to tell
This
I'm
is
not
a big
gonna say
deal.
People are going to ask about this,
Yeah.
Had every lifeboat been filled accordingly, they still could have only evacuated about 53% of those actually on board on the night of the sinking. If every lifeboat were to be filled. Okay? That was the capacity. If everyone was capacity.
Not even every lifeboat got launched.
Right.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, those last couple collapsibles, I mean, they got washed away.
Was it just the collapsibles that didn't make it? So all the other ones...
18 of the boats made it. Were launched successfully. Including that last one.
When you were saying
launched.
20, did that include the collapsibles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and again, Bruce Ismay was on that 18th boat. So keep that in mind, I guess. But furthermore, if the Titanic had all of the lifeboats that she actually needed, the evacuation was so poorly executed that they wouldn't have had enough time to load each lifeboat efficiently. They didn't even have time to launch the lifeboats that they had.
Right.
So they had no time at all. It took a couple hours, and that was that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then it was down.
Then it was gone.
Was it? So I have a vague memory of hearing, and I also vaguely remember this also being bullshit, but is there such a thing where it's like, as a boat goes down, it creates a suction that pulls things under?
Yes,
is that true?
There's a big fear of that, but they didn't really experience that.
I've also heard that isn't
Jack
necessarily...
Thayer says he didn't experience that.
I should have looked this up before, but I feel like I remember hearing that, like, there was a myth that a boat will, when it goes down, will create a suction that'll pull you down with it. Right. But I've also heard that's not necessarily true, so I don't know. Jack
Thayer says he did not experience that, and a lot of people that were in that vicinity said that, like, I didn't see any suction. We all thought there was going to be a suction. We all feared of the suction, but it didn't really happen.
We're always fearing the suction.
Yeah. Now that
interesting. We need a physics professor to give us.
I know, right?
Lesson.
Yeah, we're the history boys, not the physics boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, the cacophony of sound had, from the ship breaking and all those things, the cacophony of sound ended at that point. And what was left was an intensely haunting sound of just hundreds of people screaming and crying in the very, very cold 28-degree water. And it was so... It was like the way your grandfather described Iwo Jima. Just you couldn't pick one voice out of the crowd. There was just like somebody said, like it almost sounded like a football match, like all the people in the stands.
That makes sense.
All the the
yeah.
It was like that. And it was so haunting for them because they all had the same thought, it seemed, where they're like, if we go over there, we're going to be swamped. We're going to be mobbed.
Absolutely. Yes, you will be. Yes.
And
right.
The truth is actually further from that because, like, they were, like, in that time, like, especially, like, the first boats to be launched, they were actually pretty far away. And, like, you don't last very long in there. You know what I mean? By the time you were able to make it back, there wouldn't be that many people left alive.
Yeah, no
they
water.
They were deluded in thinking that they could make it back in time to save as many people to swamp their boats.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
So what a lot of them did is they sang hymns to try to drown out the sound of screaming people, but all of them would talk about it. Like, during the investigations, the senators were going to talk about pressed them on this. And the one guy, the poor man they had on the stand, this is right afterwards. The poor man they had on the stand was, like, breaking up, and he was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And they're like, I'm just asking. And he's like, I don't want to talk about all the people screaming. Because, like, you're going to last, they said, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes tops. Okay, so based on
That's
whether...
if you're in the water?
If you're in the water. You have, like, most people perished from cardiac arrest within 5 minutes.
Is that because of the cold?
The cold. The shock of being in the water.
That's how I would want to go.
Yeah. That's how I'd want to die.
The experience of drowning sounds like the fucking worst way to go.
Yeah. It's supposed to be really peaceful, though.
Well, why are they screaming at
I don't know. Yeah. You never asked them. Yeah.
The people that have come back from drowning have
sound like those
peaceful.
people embraced it.
Well, and some of the people that were singing to drown it out, maybe they were singing near my God to thee. Who knows? Jack Thayer said it was autumn. But anyway, The sudden immersion into the freezing water typically caused death within minutes. Either cardiac arrest, uncontrollable breathing of water, because again, you're
once
so
you inhale
cold,
the
and then you
water.
just inhale a bunch of water.
Does that kill you instantly, or is it?
No,
I feel like
it's not
that
instant.
would be.
No, it takes a few minutes.
I feel like that would be just excruciating death.
Yeah, because it's not slow. Like, it's not like you're dying of cancer and it takes weeks or months. And you kind of have time to come to terms with it. This is minutes.
Once it's in your lungs, I feel like.
Yeah, it's minutes. So it's slow enough to be agonizing.
Yeah.
But it's short enough, you know what I mean, that it must be insanely painful. You know what I mean? Insanely
And you're
painful.
probably going to shock once it's in your lungs anyway, but.
It's not as commonly believed, though, that people died from hypothermia. Not as many people died of hypothermia as you're led to believe.
Okay.
It was mainly like the shock.
They didn't live long enough to die.
Most of them. The large number. And the reason why we know this is because of how quickly it got quiet.
Oh,
It got quieter.
brutal.
I know.
That's probably
Listening
the
to
worst
that,
part.
Listening to it get quiet. It's just, I can't imagine just how haunting that must have been. Listening to it get quiet and things like that.
That's brutal.
And it all took place in the span of, 45 minutes tops until it was almost totally quiet. You know what I mean? Again, this 28-degree water, well below freezing. Charles Lightoller actually said, you're going to love this, Maddie, almost directly from the movie, that the water was like 1,000 knives stabbing him all over his body, just like what Jack says.
Yeah, they kind of like, I think that was James Cameron's way of, foreshadowing, basically, of being in the water and how painful it is.
Yeah, that's what Charles Lightoller had to say about it. But it was Herbert Pittman that looked at his watch and said it's 2:20 in Lifeboat 5. He heard the cries on the water. He decided that they were going to row back and rescue whomever they could. However, after announcing this course of action to his passengers in the lifeboat, he was confronted with a voluble set of protests from everyone in the boat.
How about no?
That were totally against this idea because they thought they were going to be mobbed, right? And capsize the boat. In later life, Pittman admitted to bearing the burden of a bad conscience for his failure to take the lifeboat to go rescue those dying people in the water that night. I can't imagine.
That's fucking brutal.
Especially when you're the only one that wants to go back and everyone's telling you no. Can't imagine what that feels like. That's crazy.
How about the people who said no? They were like, I'm sure glad I said no.
I know, right?
Because I'm alive now.
Well, every one of these people did suffer from survivor's guilt.
Absolutely.
A very bad case of PTSD and survivor's guilt. Every one of them.
Except the first class people.
Even
They're
them.
like, I
even them.
deserve to live.
Some people are dumber than others, but yeah.
Well, they have a whole scene with Molly.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
Because you were talking about...
It's one of the most famous lifeboats in
right,
the
you said
whole
you're going
thing.
to come back to that one. Okay.
Yeah. Now, as I was saying earlier, after the sinking of the Titanic, Lowe would gather lifeboats 4, 10, and 12 and Collapsible D together. He tied them all up, and he was like, okay, we're gonna switch these lifeboats around, and we're gonna go out and look for survivors. And they find Collapsible A, and they find several men in there. Collapsible A, I think there's just a couple left alive. There's almost everyone in that Collapsible is dead. Like, they died in the boat.
Right.
Which must have been crazy if you were alive in that boat to watch guys that were in a boat with you die. You know? Like, you have to be thinking, like, any minute that could be me.
Yeah.
You know? And so they saved those people. Lifeboat 4 was the one that decided to, you know, with all crew, decide to go back through and see who was alive and who wasn't. The worst part about it is that it was so dark and there was no real way of gauging where noises were coming from, that even if you did hear somebody crying out in the night, it was almost impossible
really
to
tell where it's
find
coming
them.
from.
Yeah. And so out of all of those, you know, in the movie they say 6. 6 survived from being pulled out of the water at that moment, right? If you count the people that were clinging to the collapsibles and stuff, you know, they came in contact with the water, you know?
Right, right.
But, like, the people that were in the water, like floating in the water, they took 8 out. 2 died almost right away. And then 6 survived.
Yeah.
So the movie, well, I guess technically they rescued 8, but 6 actually.
6 survived.
Yeah.
Actually did survive.
Okay.
The movie makes it sound like they only got 6 out of there.
Yeah.
No, that number kind of goes up once you consider the collapsibles that are overturned or in standing water, and how, like, out of 20, 12 out of that collapsible were actually rescued because the rest of them died. You know, like...
But the purpose of the emphasis in the movie is just to be like, by the time they came back,
it was...
everybody was already dead.
And it was kind of useless to begin with. Like, the overturned collapsible was probably the best hope for anybody that was nearby. And even then, 30 people on top of an overturned fucking collapsible lifeboat, that was all that they could manage. And they had to kind of step back and forth so it didn't, like, capsize and have all of them back in the water again.
Right.
You know, and maybe it won't be able to sink
So they made it work, but she couldn't make
now.
it work with Jack on the door.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Well, I got a story for you. It's coming up. It's coming up. Mrs. Washington Dodge, she was the only person in her lifeboat to urge everyone to go back for survivors. She was so disgusted with her fellow boatmates that they didn't want to go back, that the next lifeboat that they saw that they pulled up next to, she insisted on being switched to that boat because she was so disgusted with everyone else in her own lifeboat.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting.
That
like,
is
she's
kind
like, I can't believe you fucking people. I want to be fucking near you. You know?
So that's
in mid-ocean, she does this, you know?
That's basically the scene in the movie, but it's Molly.
Well, kind of.
She gets disgusted by
well,
them.
in Boat 6, Quartermaster Hitchens is the one that Molly Brown is in.
Molly Brown, yeah.
Major Pouchon, he asks Hitchens to row, because Hitchens is at the tiller, and let one of the ladies steer. And Hitchens is like, I'm in command of this boat. Shut up, you know. And some people are like, Major Pouchon was drunk, you know. Some people said that. It's probably a myth. But some of these guys, they only survived because they had like a little bit of brandy and like ate some food beforehand. And like them being in the water, like it like fortified them, I guess. Like some people, like I was out there for hours, and it's like you weren't out there for hours.
Liquid courage.
You were out there for like a long time, but it seemed like hours for sure, you know?
Right.
Brandy has a fortifying,
yeah.
makes you strong.
Yeah.
That's why they give it to you in the mountains. The Yelps, those dogs with the... Is that brandy? I feel like it's brandy.
Yeah, probably.
The dogs with the little barrel around there. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
St.
Like
Bernard, is that right?
Yeah, or at the, in the Iditarod, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it makes sense because every time I drink, I get super duper hot, and when I try to sleep that night, I'm like overheating every time, even in the middle of the winter. So if you're 28-degree
one lady, like a guy gave her a flask of brandy, and she had never seen a flask before. She's like, I'm an Edwardian lady, so she'd never seen a flask before. But he's like, drink it, trust me, and she does, and like she instantly was like, oh my god, that worked, and like gave it back to him. You know,
this is the best thing I've ever tasted.
Yeah. Molly Brown, she wanted to go back as well. And this is a very infamous part in it. And Lowe was like, no, you know, we're going to be mobbed. And the people we are going to see are what he said were stiffs bobbing in the water. And she was like, you know, she does say like verbatim, like, cut it out, you're scaring me.
She does, and then she's like, that's our husbands and our
husbands, out and
there.
She argued, to go back, and no one was really with her. Hitchens was the one that he was like, he even does say, shut that hole in your face, you know?
I forgot he says that,
But like Molly Brown, she didn't just sit down like she does in the movie. Like, she threatened to throw him overboard.
Really?
And like, as soon as the Carpathia did show up, she basically took command of that boat.
Nice.
I feel like that would have been even better for the movie. I wonder what the decision was.
I don't know why they left that out.
On her because she
was really cool.
Isn't there more going on? Like,
she had a life after this.
Way more, yeah.
She had a life before this and after this. I mean, there's a musical called The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Right.
Did you say they call her that in the movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's because of this event.
It's because of this event.
Yeah.
Which is, it makes no sense.
She was the one that was unsinkable, right?
You're like,
Right.
We thought it was the boat. It turned out it was Molly.
Yeah.
My bad.
But the reason why she took
she
command...
didn't sink.
the reason why she kind of took command of the boat too, like just stepped up and was a leader, is because like when the Carpathia did show up, Hitchens was like, no, that's not a rescue boat. They're just here to pick up bodies. And like Molly Brown's like, fuck you. If they're here to pick up bodies, they're here to pick up survivors.
What
Shut
the
up.
Why would
hell?
they prioritize bodies?
I know,
I was
right?
gonna
Like,
say the same thing.
I think it's just grim, like, survivor's guilt that's coming through in Hitchens. But, like, she's like, I've had enough with your dog shit attitude. Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna go over there.
You got a shitty attitude, and I won't have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much what her philosophy was.
I love Kathy Bates, by the way. American
Me too.
treasure.
She was
great.
cast perfectly in that movie.
I do remember her.
The real picture of her, like, oh god, yeah. Call up Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually was just looking at a picture of her.
Yeah.
That's usually what I'm doing if I'm looking at my phone. I'm looking at pictures of who you're talking about. Because it's just easier for me to...
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're... not to like plug our Patreon real quick, but we do post like a lot of sources, and like there's an article which you could find anyways that matches people that were in the movie
Right.
Yeah,
to their real life photos.
But I have even more. I have even more for this episode that I'm going to
Really?
post on Patreon
Yeah.
or on
people that were
our
in the
Discord.
movie.
That were not in the movie, but they
okay.
are in these boats that we're talking about.
Oh, interesting.
Photos
Okay.
of them, yeah.
Photos of them. Like,
Yeah.
not everyone that was in these boats, of course, has photographs.
You
Right.
did share that on our Discord, right?
The
Yes,
article.
that article.
I did
yeah.
look at that, but I didn't remember most of the characters I remember weren't real. I remember Kathy Bates, and I think I remember Theoden because
she
he
was
was
real.
in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Guggenheim is the guy in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
You remember the guy in the movie?
He's like, I'm gonna go down like a gentleman.
Yeah, he dresses with like the top hat on.
Yeah.
And like when the water comes in, he's like, oh,
gets all wide-eyed, like, oh,
I've made a big
fuck.
mistake.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I felt like that was such a good representation of.
Because like his like help, his steward was
Is
like
with
there with
him,
him,
yeah.
and he's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah,
you know?
it was just like it's just the overconfidence of probably these rich people, or
And
maybe
it's
it
sad.
was just pride. Like
It's just sad that like his like steward
Yeah,
like had to like
his
go
valet.
with him. His valet had to go with him.
Yeah,
You know, it's like, oh my god, that's fucking awful.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, fuck the
Work
rich.
your life for this fucking guy and then like literally die
You
because
have
he
to go down because
decided
he just decides
he wants to be a gentleman.
That's like
and
fucking
go down.
ancient Egypt, like burying your slaves with you.
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
the Vikings, you know, your daughters
Oh, yeah,
have to go with you,
yeah.
your
Fucking
horse has to go with you.
Northman.
Yeah.
Jerry and I watched Northman
I'm
recently.
glad you guys watched that. I love
Fucking
it.
awesome.
Isn't
It's
it
so
good?
good.
I
It's
knew
great.
you guys would love it.
It's everything I wanted in a
good.
Viking movie.
So
Yeah.
fucking good.
I love all of Robert Eggers' stuff, but that Robert Eggers himself describes that movie as his most entertaining movie.
Oh yeah,
it's totally
absolutely true.
So entertaining every minute.
I'm
of it.
still entertained by Lighthouse and The Witch.
Oh,
but
yeah.
that
Yeah.
movie objectively, it's just it's
Very
more
good.
fun. It's
Yeah.
violent and
Yeah.
it's a revenge story.
The story, yes.
Now the
Yeah.
the collapsible bee, the one that Jack Thayer and Colonel Gracie and Charles Lightoller were on, that was overturned. When they were rescued because Lightoller blew his whistle. So like the whistle blowing thing kind of comes from that.
Rose did that. Yeah.
That's how they were rescued from that whistle.
Crazy. Huh.
And actually, the boat that they were tied next to, Jack Thayer's mom was in that boat, but they were completely unaware that each other was in those boats until they
really?
were on board of the Carpathia, which is super interesting.
Crazy.
You know, she had no idea what happened to her son and husband. You know, and it's kind of
Wow.
miraculous that her son
No shit,
survived.
yeah.
You know.
So one thing that I did want to ask about that happened in the movie, and I don't know whether or not you know, but like they show in the movie, because I know it was cold water, but they literally had like icicles forming on
The
them.
water's 28 degrees is below freezing.
But would you have formed? Would icicles have formed?
Yes,
Really?
absolutely.
Well,
it was
over the-
that
yeah,
cold. It was
over the
28
surface,
degrees.
yeah.
It was
Right.
28 degrees, yeah.
I mean, that's why icebergs form, but like generally moving water doesn't really turn to ice.
Right, yeah.
But like
But if you get dunked in it, then you come out of it, yeah.
You're wet.
you're gonna
and
be
then
covered.
it's the air.
What happens? Yeah, you're covered in freezing water, and you come up into the freezing air.
Yeah.
Yes, it would
Right.
happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, I could see him doing that for like dramatic effect, but
No, that's real.
also,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's grim because people would freeze solid. They talked about going through and saying, like, is anyone alive? Is anyone out there? Where are you? And, like, they'd poke people with, like, the oars, and they would, like, bob and, like, spin around and stuff. Grim shit.
Yeah, and it's, that's fucked up.
The movie,
it's just haunting. You know, it's very haunting. Those people that had to see that and, like, push the bodies out of the way to try to get to, you know, these screams in the distance that only got fainter and fainter. Can't imagine. Really just can't imagine. So do you
feel like, because I know you watched it now, you hadn't at the first part, or hadn't watched it recently, like, I feel like when I was watching it, I really felt like the chaos and like the scariness, and like when they like zoom out to the lifeboats and it's kind of silent. He also did that.
Yes,
and
he
like
did.
there was
He
a
did.
lot of noise and like chaos
And then
during
it was all of a
too.
sudden quiet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like James Cameron really like nailed that a
really,
lot.
He really did a good job. There are certain big fuck ups that he made with that movie that he definitely takes ownership of. He feels really bad
Like the
about the
stars.
Murdoch. Well, worse, but he feels really bad about the Murdoch scene.
Really,
he wishes he
what
did
about
not
the
put that in
Ismay
there.
stuff?
The Ismay stuff he doesn't spell out.
Right.
There are. We're gonna really get into that next episode.
Okay.
He doesn't really spell that out. He doesn't really make that clear.
Well, he literally made him the villain of the movie.
Yes.
Besides,
Billy Zane.
Besides
Who's
Billy
a real
Zane.
cool guy.
There's something Billy Zane. We're going to talk about this in the next episode, but there's something Billy Zane does that people accused Ismay of doing.
To get or stealing a.
You'll see. I'm going to save it for the next episode.
Okay, so do you feel like though that James Cameron represented the chaos of it kind of
for
well?
the most
at
part,
least?
For the most part, he represented it pretty well.
Because the
do
bobbing
feel.
of people that happened in the movie.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to end on a real fucking grim note.
Good.
Real quick, I actually
way to
looked
end
up
it.
something on my phone real quick related to this about whether bodies would float in the water.
Yeah.
And actually, because of their clothes being waterlogged, because you're not really going to freeze under.
Yeah.
It actually would sink because their clothes would drag.
They have
down.
the life vests on. So
You're right. The life
that's
vests
why
are
they
wide.
floated.
And that's why Jack
Yeah.
sinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his clothes would pull him down. They'd be waterlogged and they'd pull him down.
Now, this is a quote from Jack Thayer. This is later during the investigations. He says this. He's talking about the boat that the Duff Gordons are on. The one that's barely filled, that definitely has room
The
for other
one
people.
that allegedly he might have paid.
I mean, he paid for their kids, but he didn't necessarily pay them off. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So in a way, he does pay them off, but in a way, it's of the moment.
It's like
so
semantics.
It's a gray area.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
He pays them during a very gray area in time, to where he's not actually paying them off in that moment.
Which
but
all the best
boy, it seems that
businessmen do.
way,
Yeah.
you know?
Well.
Yeah, so basically, this is something Jack Thayer says about that boat afterwards. He says, quote, "The partly filled lifeboat standing by about 100 yards away never came back. Why on earth they never came back is a mystery. How could any human being fail to heed those cries?" End quote. Because he was on the upturned one. There's nothing he
Right.
can do. But like, he was really close to the boat when it sank. I'm sure he was standing around the sea of people dying.
Yeah.
And there's literally nothing he can do. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so I think that's where that quote comes from. You definitely know where Jack Thayer stands on this. Like, no, they should have all came back to you know, rescue people. You know?
He says that now.
Well, I mean, that's how he survived. He survived barely, you know.
I
I
was just joking.
that's why he's.
I mean,
you know, he's that way.
I feel like if they did try to come back, they absolutely would have gotten capsized. If they came back early enough that
Even if they
people were-
did, they wouldn't have got there in time. Like, they were so far away that, like,
oh really? By the
it
time
would have
they
taken.
rode back,
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, I do think though. To
Okay.
be clear, if they could have gotten there in time, they
Right.
would have been capsized.
yeah.
Well, and
Like
I
if
think
they
so,
got there
too.
mid the mat, like when it was the cacophony of screams.
Just imagine.
they
Yeah,
would have been mobbed. That was right to
yeah,
think that.
it's true. And this boat that he's talking about, the one with the Duff Gordons on it, they probably would have, because they were a little closer than the rest of the boats.
Right.
But like, Yeah, they may have.
Or what do you do? Like go 20 yards away and like hope that the people that can swim to you, that are very few, maybe the few that can swim to you.
It did sort of happen. And among the people that did survive, there were actually 6 Chinese survivors.
Okay.
One of them, his name was Fang Lang.
Yeah.
He was floating on a door.
Fang Lang?
Whoa.
Fang Lang. He was floating on a door, barely alive.
What nationality is that name?
He just said
Chinese.
I guess I'm sorry, I was away.
Of the 6 Chinese, Fang Lang was one of them. And
I was looking at pictures of the Duff Gordons. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was focused. It wasn't that literally. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't checking my fucking Instagram.
I kind of. Oh yeah, that guy looks like he absolutely would pay people off. Look up Duff Gordon.
Yeah,
guys.
Cosmo Duff Gordon.
Yeah. That guy would 100% pay for 12 people.
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to say that, but I was looking at how Cosmo Duff Gordon absolutely paid those people off.
Well,
based off of his face.
Yeah.
Well, Fang Lang, Chinese survivor, one of 6. He was floating on a door, barely alive, when they found him. Now, when they found him, one of the people on the rescue ship said, "Let him drown." You know why?
Racism.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because he thought he was
Absolutely
Japanese.
racist.
And he goes, "I don't want to save a goddamn Jap." That's what he said verbatim.
Christ.
And this was...
Wow.
And when one of the others was like, "That's fucked up," and like took him out, like the guy started screaming in Chinese and like pointing at the guy and like saying all this stuff. But like he was this Chinese guy that was barely alive that they pulled out of the water. He like instantly helped row and like helped take charge when the Carpathia showed up and helped rescue people.
This guy rules.
The guy's a fucking hero.
They should have made the movie about him.
The guy's a fucking hero.
Even if he didn't do that shit, it doesn't fucking excuse
They should have
racism.
They should have.
Oh no, this man's alive and we're not going to save him.
Let's go save the other people that are alive around here. Wait, hardly anybody else is alive.
Anyone else.
Yeah,
Why
absolutely
the fuck would you leave the one person?
This movie should have been about the time Rose
Fang
had sex with a Chinese guy.
Yeah. And he's the one who was on the door, and he says bye-bye to her when she drowns, and he's like, "I'll never let go."
Yeah. I'll never let go. Anyway, let me go save a bunch of people. I'm Fang Lang, motherfucker.
Surely my race won't change anything about them rescuing me.
I guess one of them was like, turns out the guy was like the most heroic one of us.
I love him.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we didn't... It doesn't even matter if he was or wasn't. He was still a person that you could have rescued. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But we're also saying this in 2023.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, you would have been racist as fuck in this period of time.
I mean, listen, they had literally classes on this boat.
Distinction.
So,
they had them on planes.
That's true.
Okay. Well, they don't... Yeah, you're right. They do say first class still.
Absolutely.
It's not.
That's where Colin Farrell sits.
That's true.
And I can say that.
Yeah, but they're not like, you're Chinese, you don't get first class.
Well, you just gotta pay for it.
The fact that they that they literally found a survivor, a person barely alive, and were reluctant to save him because they thought he was Japanese and not Chinese.
Yeah, it's just
1911.
It's just fucked up.
1912.
1912. Okay. Pardon my ignorance. Why specifically would they hate the Japanese and not the Chinese at this point in time?
True.
There's some stuff that's gone down. The Russo-Japanese War.
Yeah, I know
that's a story for another day. But
that's a good story.
But the thing about that is it did cause divisions of people thinking Japanese versus the more European sort of Russians, right? Like the Russians, they thought of themselves even as more European, more white, more. We know what's going on.
They're more
in the
European
world.
than Asian.
Yeah, we control the world,
but
right?
you also, I
and
get why
these huddled masses of the Asia, Asia, we of course are.
Why don't they think that about the Chinese then?
I think they just lump them in together, much as we do today,
so the point is,
in this country.
No, you're absolutely right. So your point is,
Right.
if they thought he was Chinese, as he actually was, they still probably would.
They would have looked down on him. Yeah,
It was just
but
not
They just
white,
didn't know.
basically.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was what my question was. Was it like, oh, this guy's Japanese, he can go fuck himself. If he was Chinese, we would have saved him.
No.
They just called him Japanese.
This
because they
guy's
didn't fucking
not
know
white. So we don't want to say, and also we don't know what he's gonna do. Maybe he'll fucking go crazy.
Yeah,
or
we're
some
really
shit.
gonna talk about that shit in the next episode too, because the press went crazy. After this,
I can only imagine.
I mean, they got early reports from like these SOS signals, like people caught it, and like they're like, the Titanic's foundering. Foundering means sinking, but like the Titanic's holy shit, is this true?
Right.
You know, like, and they didn't know really. Like we're really gonna get into it in the third episode, but
they're like, this is the worst thing that's gonna happen in the next 3 or 5 years.
Yeah, but the survivors, the survivors hung out down here for about an hour and 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. But they lost all aspect of time. It was so cold. They'd been in the water, a lot of them, that they were like, we must have been out there for hours. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was an hour and 10 minutes for some of them.
One of the quotes from the movie, was it, I don't remember if it was Molly or Rose's, or no, I think it was Molly that said like, yeah, we were just waiting out there, waiting to die, waiting to live, waiting for an absolution.
Exactly.
Like waiting for something, basically.
Well,
like,
and the crazy part is like these people, as they're waiting in these lifeboats, they look around and they're like, there's like 18 icebergs out here. Fuck. Like in their vicinity.
So they probably, they still didn't feel like I'm okay. They're
Well, not like one of these boats is going to hit an iceberg, but it goes to show that like the Titanic was like, my God, it was just shooting through a field of ice. Oh. It wasn't like this one lone rogue iceberg.
Really? Okay.
Like there were like, some people said 15, some people said 18, some people said like 20 icebergs they saw around them. Like
so
there was a
field
happened. Of ice.
Yeah.
Like again, like almost 20 miles away, something like that.
Yeah.
Like the Californian was stopped in the ice. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just decided not to move at all. There was so much ice.
It was a Shackleton situation.
Yeah, and the well, not quite.
I know, but I'm just saying they were stuck in the ice too.
The Carpathia, they were trying to get there as fast as possible, and they were like, dude, we had to zigzag through that ice. There was so much fucking ice. So much ice, guys. You know. Like, how did they even make it through here?
Shouldn't they gone a little further south first?
They should have gone even further south than what they did do. And reduce speed for safety.
Yeah.
You know, take the ice warnings a little bit more seriously. People do that now, but again, we'll get there. We'll get there.
This is all retrospect.
Hindsight is 2020.
We're going to judge them all day.
We're going to talk. We're going to talk about
111 years of high state.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're going to talk about the aftermath in the next episode. So, when the Carpathia did show up, you know, because they were shooting flares and stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, some people confused it. You know, one lady was waving her cane that had an electric light in it.
Cool.
And like some people were like,
that's high tech.
Well, yeah,
that's a Blade Runner shit.
Yeah, some people were like, I guess it helped, but it kind of confused us all too. Like when she constantly was waving it at everything. Like sometimes like she was waving it at like a planet, you know, because like it was clear.
Wait, this is a random ass passenger?
No, she was like one of the ladies with first class ladies with like a cane, and there was a little light in her cane.
Was she in a lifeboat?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
she was waving it to like get like a ship's
swim out.
She's like, to
get like a ship's attention.
She's like, you can see Jupiter pretty clear.
Yeah, she was like waving it at Venus and like Mars, you know, and they're like, where are we? You know, but when it finally showed up, started pulling people up. There are pictures of like the people in the lifeboats like coming up to the Carpathia, and like the people of the Carpathia, they're like looking over, and like the captain was like, order the passengers of Carpathia back. Like, we don't want a lot of looky-loos as we're loading these people in.
Probably would have scared the shit out of the people on that boat to like pick up survivors from another boat that was unsinkable. Like,
and they were scared. They were terrified. And honestly, the people aboard did treat the survivors very nice. Like, they brought out all these blankets. They decided to give a bunch of rooms to them. Mm-hmm. Like, they consolidated their rooms and gave them empty rooms. Mm-hmm. Ismay, they were like, hey man, have some soup, dude. And he was like, no. Like, he refused everything. Mm. And they finally like they put him in one of the officers' rooms, and he just sat there staring out the window like the entire trip back.
I mean, fuck, you know, how do you even process that?
Like, he was clearly dealing with some shit. Yeah. You know, and like a lot of people, that's kind of what they did. Like, they called out for their husbands, they called out for their children.
Oh yeah, the chaos of not knowing who survived.
Idea. and not knowing, like, is this the only ship? You know, no one's told you anything.
Oh, that picked
You know,
up people.
like, maybe he's on another rescue boat. Maybe there's another one. Maybe he's...
Which was in the movie.
Yeah, maybe he's on an iceberg, floating on an iceberg.
Yeah.
You know, like, these are legitimate things that people brought up, you know?
That's the hope that kills you.
It's the hope that kills, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's so sad. It's so sad.
I can't even fucking imagine,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, being torn apart from your loved ones and then
Not
Just
knowing.
surviving and not
hoping
knowing.
they made it,
I mean,
and then-
on any, like,
And they
inkling
just
of any hope.
Never show up. They just never show up.
Yeah,
just
there's never
slowly
a moment,
diminishes.
like, there's never truly a moment where you go, turns out, no, they didn't live.
Right.
You just have to be like, it's been
Slowly-
too long,
They're never
there's no
coming
way.
back. They're never coming back.
That's
Over
so dark.
time,
It's
it's
so
just
fucking
So
dark.
fucking
Yeah.
dark. Yeah.
Yep.
13 of the lifeboats were pulled up on the Carpathia. The rest of them were left in the ocean. They just couldn't carry them.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they take the lifeboats with them?
Well, they pulled them up and they figured they would take them with them, but that was all the room they had, and they just had to leave the rest of them.
Oh,
ever
like-
since.
They didn't
The-
take the people from the
Oh no,
other
they
ones?
did,
Yeah,
of
that's
course.
what I was
They did, of
thinking.
course.
Okay.
They
I
left
was
the
like-
boats out there.
They're like,
Okay,
sorry, we
okay.
can't carry your boat, so...
No, they
They
took
took-
all the people out of all of the lifeboats that were there.
Right, and they took some lifeboats just in case they sank. Which, imagine if that fucking happened.
Right, yeah.
Like, you survive one and then it happens a second time.
Can
you're
this
like,
day
my
get
my
any
luck,
worse?
Yeah.
my luck.
Jesus Christ,
Is
yeah.
Mercury in retrograde or something?
Well, at least they were smart
because
about
she
it.
was pointing her
The
fucking...
cane at it, shaking her cane at Mercury.
You wouldn't see Mercury
At least
that
they
late.
had the forethought to do that shit, though, because, like, imagine if they did sink and then,
Yeah.
oh, great, another
Oh,
goddamn
God.
situation
Yeah.
where you don't have enough fucking lifeboats.
But I guess, like, treasure hunters would find them, like, all over the place because they drifted all over the place. And they're like, oh shit, that's a Titanic lifeboat. They'd go off and, like, pry off the numbers and be like, check it out.
I got a lifeboat.
I got a number from a Titanic lifeboat. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Wait, you're
That is
talking about,
fucking
like,
crazy.
during the time of the, or
During
shortly
that ti-
after?
years afterwards,
Okay,
like they
yeah.
were seen in other places.
People
like,
are
they
finding them
floated
years
around.
after?
Yeah.
Whoa,
They
really?
found like life vests floating around. Like
Well,
they
a
found
life
shit.
vest makes sense, but a whole ass lifeboat?
Yeah, a boat. Yeah, they'd find them in weird places and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy shit.
Whoa.
They're in the Pacific in that fucking
In
plastic.
the Atlantic.
No, I was joking.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say they're in the Pacific in that plastic fucking island or whatever. You know, that
Oh,
garbage
yeah, the
patch.
floating
I was
garbage
gonna say
island.
DB Cooper landed in one. and it
He
washed
landed on a
up on
lifeboat?
Oregon.
Yeah.
What are the
Never
odds?
seen again.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Time
planned this
doesn't really
perfectly.
come together.
It doesn't
there.
make any sense.
No. But let's see.
I mean, those lifeboats were around for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it.
So yeah, 7 of the lifeboats were just sort of left in the ocean without their occupants. Of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
The dead occupants were actually left there. Some of them were left with dead, frozen
What are you gonna
occupants
do?
inside. Yeah.
I get it.
So they did pick up some of the dead bodies, though?
No, not on the Carpathia.
Okay,
They
but
would go
later
back.
they went-
would go
okay.
back for recovery. And
Well, you gotta
we'll talk
figure
more
out
about
who
that.
died.
Is
yeah.
the Carpathia showing up in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, because at the end, Rose gets
Yep.
rescued and she has to give her name. And then she, like, sees Cal.
sees Billy Zane.
Yeah, and she has to, like, avoid him because she changes her name so nobody can ever find her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that back then.
So
Right.
by 5:30 a.m., the California wakes up and switches their Marconi back on and listens, and everyone's going crazy about the Titanic
Like,
sinking
holy
and about what their
shit.
position, and they're like, "Oh no,
Oops.
we better go over there right now." And by the time they get there, which is around 8:30, because they've just kept going, on their
Yeah.
course, by the time they get there, 8:30 a.m.
So they must have
There's
got
no
out of
one
the
left.
ice by then.
Yeah, there's no one left by 8:30 a.m.
Yeah, it's been 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And here's a very awful thing. On April 20th, the SS Bremen, after the Carpathia in California, they go back to doing what they're doing. Carpathia goes back to New York, to drop all the people off. But the SS Bremen, it was going from Germany to New York, and it goes right through the wreckage zone, and all of the victims are still floating in that vicinity, and the people on board are the first to see the floating victims.
Yikes.
and it must have been an awful sight. They said it littered the water of all these white life vests, and they were all frozen, and like they were all these people were crying, and they talked about how like they could see from like their boat like the frozen bodies like bobbing in the water, how they saw one woman clutching a baby in her arms. That's where that image comes from. That's from the movie. That they saw a woman with a baby in her arms frozen. They saw one woman clutching a big furry dog, like a big fluffy furry dog. She was clutching onto him, and they were both just frozen in the water like that. I don't know why, to me, that really got me. Like this image of a woman holding on to this big furry dog. It just, God, it really got me. Really got me.
Frozen in time, yeah.
And they wanted to stop and pick up some of the bodies. And the Bremen at the time, they knew that recovery ships were on their way to come pick up the bodies, so they refused to do it. A lot of people on board were not happy about that because of what they had just seen. But yeah, the boat did kind of plow through like the dead bodies and things like this. Really, really grim, for everyone involved. But the Carpathia, it was going in the opposite direction. It decided that they were actually going to take all these people that were bound for New York back to New York because they had gone through enough. It's when they arrive in New York that we will pick up our next episode in the Titanic Part 3.
Oh boy. Does this investigation start right away?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It starts right away, investigation. And honestly, these poor people, they've just now survived this very traumatic event, and they're all going to be called to recount it nearly immediately.
Yeah.
And some don't have any money at all, and they have no choice but to get right on another boat and go right back.
Oh my God.
I could not imagine.
So,
but that's where we're gonna leave it.
So how many people survived again out of how many that were on
the full number of its total 2,240 passengers and crew. Only 706 people were saved.
It's pretty bad.
Those
are not good numbers.
No, not good at all.
And how long between?
And those numbers are loose too.
Yeah,
just want you to know.
Right.
There's, people argue, historians argue to this day about the Titanic. I'm sure somebody out there is going to be like, no, about one of these numbers I've thrown out during the course of this episode.
Yeah.
That's to be expected, is what I'm going to say.
I mean, yeah. In an event like that, you can't. Yeah, it's hard to really know. So, how many days were they on the Carpathia?
I think it was like 1.5.
Okay, so not that long.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty close?
Yeah, they were really close. Yeah. They were going to show up in the morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was their original plan. But the real plan was that they were going to get there that night, right? The following night, on the 5th day.
Okay.
But the captain was like, full steam ahead, we're going to get there in the morning.
Right.
And be early. Not that he was chasing a blue ribbon, but that, he, as much as anyone else involved with the White Star Line and the Titanic, he wanted it to achieve everything that it was meant to achieve. You know what I mean? And I think it's not necessarily that it's spelled out one way or another. It's that they wanted it so bad to be this.
Yeah.
They wanted their technology to conquer, nature and everything that could be conceived, and that man, with its big brain conquers all. And
yes, exactly.
There's no way the technology itself could be our undoing.
Right.
Right. I think it's a very important lesson that we should still look at, like now, like. Space travel aside, I mean, once space travel becomes a big thing, of course there will be another Titanic in space. That's just how it has to happen. That's just how it's gonna go. But like, look at the internet. The internet's another great example of just how our hubris can backfire.
There was a video game called The Starship Titanic that was based off of a small story from. There's a book too.
Yeah.
The book was written by Terry Jones. For Monty Python.
Monty Python. Okay.
But originally, like, the story, like, there's a brief story, like a tangent, in one of the Hitchhiker's Guidebooks. So Douglas Adams comes up with it. So I think even they called it Douglas Adams Starship Titanic.
I think people talked about it beforehand, though. Like when the space race began, I think they were still talking about the Titanic.
No, absolutely. I was just saying that.
Yeah.
That is a thing. Like there was a video game, a computer game, and the computer game also, there was also a book that was written by Terry Jones.
Yeah.
From...
Well, and you can take something like that, and, you know, when Elon decides to pack a ship full of people and shoot them at Mars, and it blows up or something, you know, we can say, well, it's kind of like the Titanic,
history
isn't it?
repeats itself.
Yeah, or in a way. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So there is more to the story, though, friends.
Yeah.
So please join us for Titanic Episode 3. There's more to it than just the sinking. So much changes because of it.
Right.
Society would really rethink a few things after this whole thing. It really shook the world. It really did.
Because this must have been, at that time, like... one of the biggest loss of life events, probably, right? Or like,
Well, outside
not necessarily.
of war.
Not necessarily.
Well, outside of war.
It wasn't even like the biggest. It's the fact that it was so symbolic.
Yeah, I think that,
you know, it was such a symbol, and it captivated like the minds and imaginations of just the English speaking world. And I mean, that's what it served to sort of symbolize, like the power of the Anglo-Saxon race above all. You know, that's what they were really trying to say when you really boil it down.
Right.
And the fact that it went down, you know, that bitter irony, you know, all of a sudden you're not so sure of yourself and your technology and what that's going to bring.
Like Titanic existed as a metaphor for how fucking great they viewed themselves as, and it failed.
Yeah, and it's almost an omen. Like it's an omen for what was to come. Like,
yeah, I mean, 3 years later, we were in a world war.
Yeah, this technology reared its ugly head in mechanized warfare. You know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like it kicked off this, you know, over and over, they just saw death and destruction because of all this faith they placed in their own technology.
Like, yeah, exactly. Where it's like,
it's almost like a "what have I done" sort of moment, you know.
You go right from that where it's almost this like harbinger of doom. It's just like, sure, it wasn't the greatest loss of life ever, but it was symbolic.
Yeah.
And the fact that it failed and the loss of life was horrific. And leading into just a few short years later, we have a world war that people think is going to be over in a few months, and then they realize that current warfare technology has made this into a gigantic standstill in a way that we've never seen before.
Let me put it in perspective. The first few minutes of the Battle of the Somme, killed more people than the Titanic as a whole.
That makes
the first
sense.
few minutes. So there you go. You know. It was an opening stanza to a global nightmare that was about to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. Where it's like, it's almost a prologue to this. Especially like in the Western world, to be like,
the Western world, definitely,
which is the majority of where that war was happening. The World War II would bring up a lot more, but
well, there's the forgotten Eastern Front. Right, I would like to do an episode at one point about the.
Are you talking about World War I? Eastern Front? Well, but that's still Europe.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, there's definitely other elements, parts of the world were part of that for sure. But,
yeah, for sure.
But to a greater degree in World War II.
Yes, for sure.
And now we have nuclear bombs.
Yeah. It's gotten better? Not necessarily.
Well, the thing is, like, they're all blanks, right?
Yeah, no.
What's that?
Kunk.
Kunk, yeah.
Fill me a kunk, yeah. We have more nukes than we've ever had, actually.
She, starts crying. She's like, can we talk about something?
Yeah.
Do you like ABBA?
Yeah, I love ABBA. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Anyway, join us for episode 3, won't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That is our episode. It was pretty harrowing. I'm glad I wasn't there. It sounds brutal. Thank you so much for listening. I am Christopher Whedon, and I am a history boy.
Indeed.
And I am Maddie Moon, and I am a history boy. Just to remind you a little bit about our social media that we have.
Indeed.
We have a email. I don't know. I forgot the word for email for a second.
Yeah.
I've been living in 1912 this whole time.
They didn't have email then.
No.
So if you were on the Titanic and you have something that you want to say, you can email us.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. Morse code.
Yeah. At historyboyspodcast@gmail.com. And we also have a Patreon, which, like I said, if you want to join for only $1 a month, you can chat with us on there.
See all of our shenanigans on Discord.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or $5, we have a Patreon show.
Indeed.
You can get the most recent episode, and then $10 you can get access to all of them, all the old Patreon episodes.
Indeed.
So that's a good thing.
That's
Follow
great.
us on all the social medias if you haven't deleted them by now.
Yeah. We're on mostly on Instagram.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,
Yeah.
And I am Jerry Nash, your humble history boy. As always, thank you so much for listening. We love all of our listeners. Honestly, especially our Patreon listeners. They keep this show going, just like the coal trimmers and firemen in the bottom of the Titanic. They're just feeding in the coal, keeping it going, buying books for us, all that kind of stuff, which is super awesome.
The people shoveling coal are buying us books.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking. And then our lurker listeners, they are just as important because they listen to the show as well. Anyone that listens to the show, I love you.
Yes.
I love you as a listener. Please tell your friends. Get the word out. Have something to talk about.
And Maddie, we technically do have a TikTok, right? We just posted
Technically,
maybe
yes,
one thing.
but we haven't posted that
I
much
recently
yet.
became TikTok famous, where you could hear my voice in the background.
Of a
Yeah.
very
TikTok.
famous TikTok.
Because that's
She's-
all it takes.
She has 500,000, and you can absolutely hear my voice in the background.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well-
if I should say who that is, but who gives a shit.
Don't do
Because
it.
she was at a bar. Yeah, she doesn't need any more goddamn
Mr.
promotion.
Chris.
Love you, bye.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of fun. We'll see you next time. Or I guess we won't. Whatever.